Call the Select Board meeting of Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 at 6:30 PM. Jim, do we have need for non-public tonight?
Mr. Chairman, we do not. And just as we kick off, for anybody who may be here for the short-term rental public hearing, that is being tabled until June 4th due to noticing and conversations with legal.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
We have consideration of minutes, April 30th.
Mr. Chairman, I have a change on page 2. The first time it says Mrs. Murray, and I'd like it to read, state she will not vote on 36-5, Section O, commercial use of the Living Museum ramp for barges since she has a conflict of interest.
Thank you.
Any other changes?
I don't know if I have a change. Wow, that's loud. I don't know if I have a change, but I have something that I wanted to clarify, and I don't know how the board wants me to do it. And it said in here that there was a question about the hours of our docks being used, and it was confusing because it said, it's on the first page under Mrs. Carpentier. It said that our docks are 4-hour limit from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then no docking from 1 a.m. Till 6 p.m. till 1 a.m. So I wanted to, oh no, it says no docking, no overnight docking from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. So I think the confusion was what happens between 6 p.m. and 1 a.m. And my understanding is that you can dock any length of time at that point. And I just wanted, the public to be aware of that during the day we have 4-hour docking from 6 p.m. till 1 a.m. we have unlimited docking, and from 1 a.m. till 6 in the morning there's no overnight docking.
Yeah, I think what happened, I think what was up here is that it was written in our ordinance 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and we need to correct the ordinance to
Okay.
the other time, was my understanding, was what she was talking to.
Okay.
But good clarity.
All right, that's all. Okay.
Okay, no other changes? I have a motion to...
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept with Ms. Murray's adjustment for the
Second.
April 30th minutes.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, May 7th. Still minute. Okay. Anything on May 2nd? You need a motion?
I move that we accept the May 7th, 2025 Board of Selectmen's minutes.
All those in favor? Oh, we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Brian, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, May 8th, work session. Anybody have any issues with these minutes? Okay, have a motion to approve.
Move to approve work session number 2 dated May 8th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next on our agenda is public input, limited to 3 minutes per resident. This is discussion, not debate.
Hello, Bobby Goodman, citizen. Woo. By too close. Wow. Just 2 things. One, on April 2nd, you gave a permit for Memorial Day. At that time, the gentleman speaking on behalf of the permit mentioned that we had, at 3 o'clock, there was silence at 3 o'clock, and I'm wondering, I don't know if there's a way to silence our clock for Memorial Day. And if there is, I would like to, for that moment of silence, to ask you if you can quiet the clock. And then the second thing I wanted to bring up, also kind of a Memorial Day issue and something that I've been talking about for the last couple of years and have encouraged the board to take up a baby box and our safe haven laws. I know, John, I don't know if you followed it at all over the last couple of years, but the board ultimately, you guys voted against it. Linda, I believe you abstained, and Brian, you voted for it. I am hoping I introduced to you that maybe putting a sign up is something we can do in the corridor where people can be notified that they can drop their babies off at the fire department, police department, hospital, church. I don't know if you know, but a baby was found dead, a newborn, in a pond in Manchester just a couple months ago. They just laid the baby to rest. And we should be ahead of this. Putting up signs. There are about 650 teenagers who come into this town between Brewster, a high school. It's a sign. Just put up a sign. Be ahead of this. We don't want to be the town where a baby is dumped in Rust Pond or Crescent Lake. There's no reason not to do this. This year I'm going to do a warrant article for it. Anyway, we need to get that box in there. But the least you guys can do is put up a sign until we do that. We have too many girls here, and nobody wants to talk about the rapes that happen or what's happening with our laws right now. And I'm gonna flip this. There are 500,000 men a year who rape women. I'm sorry, but this is something that we're dealing with in our culture. So I don't understand why we can't be ahead of this. It's a sign. Just put up the sign. We'll deal with the box later, but that's just my ask. Please, please.
Okay, anybody else at this time? Okay, we'll move on to public hearings. First one, the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 21st, 2025, on or about 6:30, Wolfeboro Town Hall, Great Room, 84 South Main Street, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, to consider the application for an issuance of an alcoholic beverages permit for the American Legion Post 18 for their sock hop fundraiser on May 24th, 2025, the Great Hall of Wolfeboro Town Hall from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, you did receive updated insurance.
Yes.
At the kickoff of the meeting.
Good evening. Can I give you a little history?
Yes,
and
would you
start with
state
some-
your name for the record, please?
Tom Southern, Southern. I'm the commander of Post 18, American Legion. Can you hear it now?
Thank you.
All right. I want to take things in chronological order just a little bit, let you know what we're doing. The sock hop is Saturday, this coming Saturday from 6 to 9, 6 to 10. It's going to be catered by the Lions Club. They're bringing in pizza, whatever. We're going to have open bar service by Nolan's or Trento. I mean, it's the same company. They've provided a liquor license. The Legion has permission to hold events. We have nothing to do with the alcohol whatsoever. That was one of the things I started with. We don't even touch the alcohol, unless we buy one or two, but that's it. Saturday morning, we're going to put flags in the cemetery. We call the ceremony Flags In. They're on a short pole, flags, and we do 4 or 5 cemeteries. These flags are taken out every fall during Veterans Day, and what we've been able to do is been able to have the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts put them in and take them out. Of course, we schmooze them a little bit by feeding them hot dogs and hamburgers, but that doesn't hurt. But it makes for a nice expression. And it's interesting to hear the comments from these kids. You know, we saw somebody there died in 1775. And they're just awestruck. And I think it's a great experience for them. it's a lesson in history. So we keep doing that. I mean, I get carried away with it myself. So the sock hop is on Saturday. Monday is Memorial Day. That's when we'll have a memorial service downtown, starting at Pickering Corner. It'll be kind of a short parade. We'll be starting at Pickering Corner. We'll have the high school band, some Legionnaire March, and anybody else who wants to come along. It starts promptly at 9. Is that right, Paul? Paul says 9 o'clock. We got to do it at 9 o'clock. We march down Main Street, take a left at the library, and go out to the dock area. We have a flag lowering. There will be comments, inspirational, and more. It's not a very long ceremony, but it's very meaningful. And I think the community is really bought into us, because it seems every year we have more and more people to attend something like that, which is a memorial to the veterans who fought, died, those fought, came home, and now passed away. We honor all of them. Let's see, excuse me. The following, June 1st, we have our annual fishing derby, which we put on for the last 75 years. This is, we get kids to come out for a fishing derby. This year we're doing it along with the Lions Club, and it's always something that the kids look to. I think some of the older guys, the sponsors, get maybe more of a kick out seeing those kids out there jumping around and catching fish. Independence Day. I say Independence Day. Harold Chamberlain always got on me when I said, it's 4th of July. But what does 4th of July mean? It's our Independence Day, a day for celebration. We'll be sponsoring the annual 4th of July parade. I mean, there'll be plenty of notice for that. July 5th is going to be a kind of a special event day at the Nick. The Lions Club is putting on their annual car show. This is now 3rd or 4th, and just keeps growing every year. I mean, has great attendance. Also, the Legion and the National Guard are sponsoring a static Black Hawk helicopter day at the Nick. The helicopter is going to come in before things get started. It's going to be kind of a show and tell. They're not going to be taking off and landing until everything is done. The Lions Club will be catering their show and the helicopter show as well. So that makes for an interesting 5th of July. Any questions?
Could you restate the date for the fishing derby and the time for everybody?
1 June.
Excuse me?
1 June.
1st of June?
For the fishing derby.
Yeah, at what time?
What 10. 10 o'clock.
And where is it?
What's the pond? It's a secret.
Isn't that 109A and up?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah. Right by the end of Lang Pond Road.
I'm sorry.
Right by Lang Pond Road.
Yeah, that's yeah, right.
Front of
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, does anybody want to make a motion in reference to the liquor license?
I'll make a motion to issue an alcohol beverage permit to the American Legion Post 18 for their sock hop fundraiser on May 24th, 2025, And it says here the Great Hall, but is it at the Great Hall?
Yeah.
Okay. Great Hall, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Second.
Last year it was at the Pop, right? Last year you had it at the Pop Whalen? Yeah, okay.
Second.
Okay, then a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you. And they're all invited too, right? That's right.
Next public hearing, the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. at the Great Hall, 84 South Main Street, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, for the acceptance of unanticipated funds for an amount donated that is over or more than $10,000 in accordance with RSA 31:95-B, Roman numeral 3, small a, relative to a donation of funds in the amount of $199,000 for the Greater Wolfeboro NEBA chapter for the purposes of improvements to the Abenaki bike trail systems as discussed at the Select Board's meeting on April 9th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, in your packet, you have a memo from me outlining some of the actions which has taken place with this board in conjunction with the Wolfeboro Single Track Alliance, which is now the Greater Wolfeboro New England Mountain Bike Association Club. Contained within that is the exhibit of full minutes, the license agreement, and the amendment to the agreement that you approved. In front of you this evening, you received a 8.5 by 11 map of the proposed work. That map is also behind you on an easel for you to see. And Mr. Dow is here to speak on behalf of the project.
Chris Dow, the president of the Greater Wolfeboro chapter of NEMBA. So I'll keep it short as far as saying in too much, because I know this is hopefully just an approval process, but just wanted to speak to the map, I think specifically. After the approval, I did get notification that we needed more approval to move forward by providing a map. So what you have in front of you and what's on the easel is leveraging the GIS mapping, which shows the boundary lines. So that's, a town mapping software that's being used in conjunction with call-outs for specific areas on the trail, like the boardwalks that were put in last year, the wooden features and things like that. So in discussion with Linda, when I was alerted by Jim about the need of the map, we talked through the requirements of what the board was hoping to see, and then got confirmation that this is what was being looked for. So aside from that, I think, John, you also went out and walked the trails with Chuck just to see where everything is, and saw that everything is flagged, and that we would obviously welcome an additional walk once the trail builder's here just to confirm everything. So I think I guess I'll just leave it at that, unless we have questions specific to moving forward with the acceptance.
I just have a request, and I think it's going to be fine. When you finish the trail, building the trail, it's not going to be 100% the way this map is, I'm sure. There's going to be deviations. Can we leave this as an planned and then get the as-built so we'll know exactly where it goes, if it deviates off a little bit here or there?
Yeah, that's completely acceptable.
Okay, that's perfect. I have a question too. If you, as a group, see someone else that's not part of your group building trails in certain areas, can you let us know?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I think that's something that
That's SOP.
I think everybody would want to know. I mean, we've come a long way to have approval to build trails, so I don't think we want people building things that aren't.
Good.
Yeah, they wouldn't be to your standards. They might interfere with what you plan on doing, so it would just be a good thing, because I know that when we walked last year, Linda and I, there were trails that were started by somebody else, little ones. And those are the ones that if you let us know, and if you let us know for us to shut them down, or you shut them down, or however it works.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, we were recently talking, so last night we had a trail maintenance night over at Fernald, which obviously you don't care about too much here, but we did notice tire tracks from an e-bike that's more like a motorcycle with the bigger, fatter tires, and so we're trying to figure out ways to identify whether it's game cameras or things like that, so we can, you know, if we're not in the woods 24/7, we're not going to be able to figure out who's doing what, but that I think if we notice things, we might employ those sorts of tactics to figure out who's doing that. So, yeah. John?
Yeah, I'm just, when I saw this from Chris, I also stated that I hope you gradually add all the other trails in this as kind of a model of what we are looking for, and this is what we were looking for.
Yep.
A few more GPS spots might be helpful. Just, we're trying to make sure that our map, we can see it, but this is very nice.
Yeah, great, thank you.
So this might not be relevant to Chris, but there's a culvert that's right behind the Filter Bed Road parking lot that's been washed out with no stabilization. And I was wondering, Jim, how do we address that? Who's responsible to fix that culvert?
Is that the area where the tree came down last year? Chris, do you know?
Where
it's
you come
talking?
down the trail from the parking lot, and then if you went right, you go to the maintenance road that goes out. Is it on the cross-country ski trail area?
So if you went down Filter Bed Road just after the parking lot, went straight in,
Yep.
it's in there about 100 feet, and it takes all the water from the left-hand side of the hill and then skirts it across. And so it looked like a trail crossing for the cross-country
Yeah.
snowcat.
Yeah.
I'll take a look at that.
I mean, it's not necessarily, like, we provided stone dust last year for a washout on some of the stone dust on the further side towards Abenaki, but, you know, those double track and maintenance roads I would say be more likely handled by the cross-country or the Abenaki crew or town.
Yeah,
I
and
don't know.
depending on where it is, whether it's used for the contract operator access to spray fields, that could be on us. So it's something I've got to pinpoint a little tighter.
I think I got a picture for you. I'll see if I can get it, yeah.
Hey, any other questions? You want to make a motion in reference to this?
I do have one question. In talking with the trail builder, there may be some efficiency on the pricing. This is saying the 199. If it ends up being a little cheaper, I'm just curious how that works with the town. Should the language be up to 199, or is it just fine as is to sign?
I
And
would
if
say be up to
Yep.
the 199.
okay,
Yep.
okay, that would be my only question. I'm just curious.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Paul, you making the motion?
Sure. I'd like to move that the town accept the unanticipated funds for an amount donated that is over $10,000, and in accordance with RSA 3195B, Roman numeral 3A, relative to the donation of funds in the amount of up to $199,000 from the Greater Wolfeboro NEMBA chapter for the purpose of improvements to the Abenaki bike trail systems, as discussed at the board's April 9th meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as soon as I get confirmation on the start date, I would want to reach out, and I'll talk to you, Jim, about all this invoicing and everything, but just so we do another walk once everybody's here.
Yeah, when are you going to do the maintenance day, your annual go through all the trails? Last time you were here, you didn't know because it wasn't quite time. So do you have a date?
Yeah, so like I said, we just started with Fernald this week, so that's, I was talking with Rudy and some of the other folks, so we're trying to plan that probably within the next few weeks. It's just we've been looking at weather, and every time it goes, it starts raining again, so I would say relatively soon. And as far as the opening of the trails, we
Yeah.
have been out to make sure that it's not too wet in areas, and we posted on social media and through some emails about, making sure we're not riding in a couple different sections. This is about a couple weeks ago, but yeah, it is. We're in planning for it. Like I said, Fernald was the first step because it's been drier, and then Sewell and Abenaki are right next on the list. So, and that stuff we post on Facebook, Instagram, via email, things like that. So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
thanks.
Next on our agenda, temporary event permit. Wolfeboro Select Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 at 6:30 to consider a temporary event permit application for Kingswood Regional High School. Hold a scale model of solar system along the Bridge Falls path from May 22nd to June 16th, 2025. Permit 2025-37.
Hi. My name's Kelly Demain, and I'm a teacher, science teacher at the high school, Kingswood High School. And I proposed this idea to my students, not realizing I needed a permit at the time, but I'm here to request a permit. And the students worked on an activity where they have researched the planets, and they have done some calculations based on the distance on the Bridge Falls path between the train station and Center Street, which is the town is in charge of. And so the idea is that they'd start at the train station where that's the sun, and using a scale distance where they calculated that 1 AU, astronomical unit, would equal 80 feet. They now have distances where they would measure out where the planets are relative to the train station being the sun.
Cool.
And so what we've done, this is the first time doing this, so I'm sure there are some parts of it that might need improvement if it seems to be something that we would do in the future. But we were worried about weather, of course, and so have done some lamination and tried our best to keep that, keep it from pretty waterproof. And also, I know that, we want to make sure that nothing looks strange on the trails. So, I mean, just as a community member, I would probably walk it every now and then during those 2 weeks just to make sure nothing looks wonky. And so I think that was it. We would be removing this by the 16th of June, which is Monday. And I asked to put this in tomorrow, which would be too rainy. So we'd probably, if approved, install it on Friday if weather permits. If not, we'd probably have to do it early in the week next week, when the students are available. So that's my
Questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
And this is what it looks like.
Cool. So did I hear you correctly that you're going to show the distance between the planets on the path? Is that?
Yeah, so
It's a smoot.
we
Are you familiar with the smoot?
I am.
It's the MIT smoot.
Yeah.
All right.
So we've measured the distance from the train station to the to Route 20. Is that Route 28
That's
Center
awesome.
Street, and then converted that to feet, and then converted that from the AU to the
Are you going to let your students call it your name as
I doubt that. They'll probably find something more obscure. So, so in the meantime, and we have a little description of, we're doing our best just with the preliminary ideas. At the end, actually, I brought Neptune here, and you can see there's a
oh, there we go. There's another,
Yeah, so this would be, I didn't bring, the sun's in my car, but I thought that was getting a little excessive because we're on TV. So this would go at the beginning of the train station, at the sun, where the sun is, and so it just describes, the planet walk. I know that this is along the the Canton Valley Rail Trail that I know is a Bridge Falls path in this section. And I just wrote, "You're at the sun," and then we talked about the distances. So it explains how the sun to Neptune is 2.78 billion miles, or we really use kilometers usually in class, but 45 billion kilometers, and sun to Earth is 93 million miles, which is 149 million kilometers. And so that distance from the sun to Earth is considered the 1 AU, and that's what we ended up using for our conversion. So that's marked, this part is at the sun, and then at Neptune, and then I did help the kids, we included this QR code here, so when they get to Neptune, there are a couple along the way just to give you links to something informative if you wanted to look into it a little more. But this QR code actually goes to a Google form, and that form allows the public to input any comments or feedback. So
Awesome.
we the kids kind of initially wanted to maybe let people write on the board, and that seemed a little risky, and so we can try this and see what kind of feedback we get, which is always helpful. Hopefully, all good.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's the request.
An alumnus of MIT by the name of Smoot became the head of the National Standards Institute. And as an honorary to him, the measured distance across the bridge that comes over Massachusetts Avenue from Boston over to MIT and the Harvard area is measured in smoots. So congratulations. I hope they name it after you and you get measures and
Wow.
smoot proxy. That's good for you. That's great.
So
That's
anyway,
fantastic.
they're having fun with the project.
That's good.
It's great.
So
Any questions from the board?
No.
Any questions from the public?
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the temporary event application for the Kingswood Regional High School to hold a scaled model of the solar system along the Bridge Falls path from May 22 to June 16, 2025, permit 2025-37.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
We'll call it
Thank you.
domains. We'll call it. Your students are watching it.
All right, our next temporary event permit, Wolfeboro Select Board will hold a public hearing Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 at 6:30 to consider temporary event permit application for the Back Bay Water Skiers, Inc., doing business as Abenaki Water Ski Club, to host 4 events: 37th New Hampshire Open, June 15th, 2025, 3rd Junior Lakes Region Open, July 18th, 2025, 45th Lakes Region Open on July 19th and 20th, 2025, and 34th New Hampshire Water Ski and Championships on August 23rd, 2025, from 8 a.m. to sunset in Back Bay and Town Park adjacent to Back Bay. Permit number 2025-38.
Good evening. Bill Swaffield for the Abenaki Water Ski Club. Seeing as how it's the 45th annual Lakes Region Open in July, I can't believe it's been 45 years since I've been coming up here, but or 45 years since we've been in Back Bay. And that's really the only public water ski tournament site in New Hampshire, with the only water ski jump in New Hampshire. So it's something that makes Wolfeboro unique, and I think I'm certainly proud of it. I'm certainly proud of the condition of Back Bay. When we started, we had to pull out 150 logs because it was not navigable out there. And now it's a pretty good playground for all of us, so pleased about that and happy to be continuing with it. Right, we have 4 tournaments. First one's on June 15th, Sunday, June 15th, which is coming right up, and I hope the water level doesn't go up too much more, or we might have a problem, but hopefully after 3 more weeks it'll be okay. So that's what we're doing. Over the years we've had a number of elite water ski competitors coming through our club, and I just thought I'd mention a couple of them right now. Becky Bartlett and her son Aaron are both national champions. Aaron is on the under-17 U.S. national team, and Becky has won multiple ski jumping championships, national ski jumping championships over the last at least 6 years now. And she's on the over 45 U.S. national water ski team. And we have a young man who last year at 16 years old set the world record in trick skiing, and that's Jake Abelson, who lives in Holderness in the summer. He's a member of our club. And his sister is also an elite skier. But if you want to see the best water skier, trick skier in the world who's in our club, you can Google Jake Abelson. It's amazing the way he tricks. So just trying to promote our kids a little bit, but we do have a number of other kids in the club now that are more than we've had recently that are all skiing really well. So it'd be nice to have people come out and take a look at it and enjoy the action right along the Bridge Falls path.
Do you have any questions?
No, so it was a good follow-up because you told us a bunch of stars.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it works out well. So I want to move to approve a temporary event permit for the Back Bay Water Skiers DBA Abenaki Water Ski Club to host 4 events. The 37th New Hampshire Open on June 15th, 2025. What time?
8 a.m. to sunset.
8 a.m. to sunset. The 3rd Junior Lakes Region Open on July 18th, 2025.
8 a.m. to sunset.
8 a.m. to sunset. The 45th Lakes Region Open on July 19th and 20th, 8 a.m. to sunset, 2025. And 34th New Hampshire Water Ski and Championships on August 23rd, 8 a.m. to sunset, 2025. At the Back Bay Town Park adjacent to Back Bay, permit number 2025-38.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
John, you had a question?
I do have a question for Bill. So what will be the determining factor on the water level?
We'll go by the state rules. If the state shuts, active boating down except for headway speed, we won't be able to do it. And if we're close to that, we'll probably go around and check with the property owners to see how they feel about it.
Okay. So in relation to, not to this, but to general boating and water skiing, what would happen if you were just practicing water skiing out there and there were kayakers or whatever? So what would be the protocol for your group? Would you stop and allow those people to continue their paddling, or what would you do?
We have a whole list of rules for the club and the club members, and we give way to everyone else. If we're within 150 feet of them, we go to talk to them. Sometimes people won't even know there's a course there until you go out and mention it to them, then they'll go around the side. Or if someone wants to be in the middle of the bay while we need to ski or want to ski, we won't ski. But generally, everyone works with each other out there. We've been out there so long, and with the jump sitting there, it's obvious it's a ski site, but that doesn't give us dominance over the bay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, we have another permit. Wolfeboro Select Board will hold a public hearing Wednesday, May 21st, 2025, 6:30. Consider temporary event permit application for the New England Vintage Boat Auction to host a boat auction at the Nick property from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. on July 10th and 11th, 2025. Preview dates: event on Saturday, July 12th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Permit number 2025-39.
Hi, I'm Annie Lennon from the New Hampshire Boat Museum. This is our annual request for our auction. We've been holding it at the Nick for a number of years. And it's a great fundraiser for the boat museum. and we'd just like to do it again. We have submitted our tent permits to Chief. He informed me of something I'm missing that he'll get tomorrow, so that's about it.
Any questions?
You want a
It's
motion?
great place to pick up a good kayaker.
So I'll make a motion to accept a temporary event permit application for the New Hampshire Boat Museum to have the New England Vintage Boat Auction at the Nick property from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. on July 10th and 11th, 2025. Those are the preview dates. The event is on Saturday, July 12th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Permit number 2025-39. I've been there before.
I'll second it.
I actually auctioned 2 boats off there at one
It's a
time.
fun event. It's fun to watch, and it's great to, if you're looking to buy something.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the bulk vote. These are weekly manifests, property tax credit and exemptions, yield tax levies, intent to cut, property tax refund or abatements, approval of the 2025 tax warrant, and a raffle permit
2 raffles.
for end 28 hours of hunger.
Two.
Do you have questions? Yes.
Yeah, this is for Jim. Since we are approving the tax warrant, do we have a date when you believe our tax bills will be going out so the public knows they're on their way?
I do not have that from Brenda. Usually, once she gets this approved, it takes about a week for them to turn around. At least that's what it's been historically. And then they're out usually within 10 days, if I recall correctly.
So somewhere is the 1st of June.
You're about to get clarification.
So we got updated information, I
Yes,
do
I just,
believe.
spoke to Brenda just this afternoon, and bills will actually be available online by the end of this week, and they'll be going out in the mail by the end of the month.
Thank you, Sam.
Welcome.
Leave that there, you'll be back.
And
That's always good news.
Dave, we had,
I thought
didn't,
everybody wanted to get
That's always
we
welcome.
had 2 raffles, right? One is 68 Hours of Hunger, and one is Great Waters Music.
Right,
Oh, yeah,
there's 2.
okay. You're right. All right, next on the agenda is
We've got to
new
approve
business.
these, right? Do we have to approve this? Or did we
Oh,
vote?
yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept the bulk vote A through G.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, next in the new business, discussing of expenditure and revenue report. Finance Director?
She's coming back.
Don't we have,
Sam's
Hello
back.
again.
Hold on just a second, Sam.
That's not on mine. Been taken off. You mentioned that at the beginning.
don't we have to set the
Just
date?
mentioned June 4th.
But doesn't this board need to vote to set that date?
Yes.
Correct.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen set the date for the public hearing on short-term rentals for June 4th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. Thank you, Linda.
Okay, Sam, it's your turn now.
All right. Sam Kelly, Finance Director. I'm here to report on April's actual versus budget numbers. Through April, we are 4 months or 33% through the year already. Let's see. As we just talked about, the property tax bills will be going out by the end of the month. So hopefully well, you probably won't see it till June, but the revenues will drastically go up due to collecting that. At this point, the general fund has spent or committed 37% of their budget. Water fund, 39%. The electric fund, 36%. Sewer fund, 77%, and Pop Whalen at 50%. There's a second column which is just reflecting the expended only percentages. General funds at 31, water funds at 31, the electric funds at 33, sewer fund is at 44, and Pop Whalen at 46. The revenues collected, general fund, again, is only at that 6%, which we'll see go up when the tax bills go out. The water fund is at 55% collected, the electric fund's at 40%, sewer fund at 21, and Pop Whalen has received 45% of their revenue. The auditors were on site since I've last seen you guys. They were here the last full week in April. Everything seemed to go fairly well. Now we'll just kind of wait and see if they need anything else to finish their report. Also reflected in these numbers are all the previously approved line item transfers. So hopefully our budget is more settled this go around for 2025. And that's all I really have, unless you have any questions.
Question, Linda?
No, I just want to thank Sam. I had many questions, and I went in the other day, and she answered them for me, and I appreciate that. And one had to do with how we're dealing with the administration of Public Works.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that will be coming soon.
I'm not sure I understand. What does that mean?
We divided it out differently, so it's hard to tell when I look at the statements now that it's not all
Water,
completely.
sewer.
Yeah, because we were in a default
Got it.
budget.
Yeah. I
Reverts back to
Yeah.
2023,
So
so.
I was having trouble, and she and I had a good conversation about it.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Chairman, I have a question, comment. Thank you, Sam, for doing this. So just so that I'm clear, the operating budget expended only versus the operating budget committed, so are these accrued, this committed, do you have like an accrual going
Those
on?
are encumbrances or
They're
purchase
encumbered.
orders that have
Okay.
been created.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'll be back at you probably in the month of July. I think we can all, at least I feel comfortable that water, municipal and sewer, municipal electric and sewer, they hit their numbers, because we know how many customers they have, and we know how much money we charge them, and we know how much money we spend. So that budget normally just hits the nail right on the head. The question for the Pop Whalen is, because we don't have the luxury of knowing how many customers we have, the question that I'll be asking probably in the July timeframe when you get a little more traction under this is, where should that revenue number be on a year-to-date basis? And as I've done before with your predecessor, do we have an end-of-year target in mind on revenues?
For Pop Whalen.
Yeah, for the Pop. And then the last one is there any ETA on the auditor? It's normally July, although last year I think it was September, wasn't it?
I think
The
that's when
deadline listed in the contract that was signed is August 15th.
Yeah.
That's the deadline to have the report to us. And I believe they're scheduled at this point to kind of present their report
Something, yeah.
to the board
Okay.
the following Wednesday after.
Got it. Okay. So around the August timeframe, we can kind of plan on having that. Okay, good. Thank you. I got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
So if your sewer fund is operated, extended at 77% and you expended 44%, and we're only a third the way through, are we on target?
The sewer fund, the bulk of that.
It's the contract.
The expense is the contract.
It's the contract.
To run
Contract.
the facility.
So how does that pan out the rest of the year? Half of the year they're going to be at 66%, and then And then at 3/4 of the way, they'll be at 99%. And then, so we'll have another third of a year, and there won't be any funds left, or?
Are you talking the expense side, or?
Well, it says operating budget expended 77%, and then it says operating budget expended only 44% at this present time. So shouldn't it be 33%, all of them, or?
Not necessarily. A lot of items you pay for at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the full year, I'd have to dive in.
That's the right
deeper.
answer.
Yeah.
So the way I learned, I'm sorry, Linda, you were up. Go ahead. Go ahead, you were good.
I was just going to say, if you look at the debt service, we've paid a bunch of debt service, which picks that up. So I usually have to go to the back sheet and look for those big items. And the
Dave?
debt, we've paid a bunch of the debt for the water treatment plant.
And Dave? So the way I learned it is that we take a big budget number and divide it by 12. And unless we have a big expense like the renewal of the Woodard & Curran contract, and then that just, it hits us. I mean, not typically, in other places I've been, you calendarize your budget. So you say, we anticipate having a big hit in the month of March, and you'd load the budget for that month of March. We don't do that. We just spread it out over 12 months. So not to make light of it, but it'll catch up. And at the end, I think because of water, sewer, and municipal electric, we know both sides of that equation. We know how many customers we got. We know how much money we charge them. We understand how much money comes in. We understand how much money gets taken out by people not paying their bills. So that thing just works like a clock. It just, at the end of the year, it lines right up. The wild card, as I said earlier, I think is the pop, because we don't know how many customers we got, how much ice time we're going to rent. That's always a wild card, so we just got to keep our eyes on that one.
Now, I could be wrong, but I remember when Woodward and Curran came to us, and I don't know if anybody else remembers this, they said that they buy a lot of their supplies up front in the beginning of the year, because if they buy in bulk and they buy the supplies for operation of the plant, they save money. So that's also a reason why they said that we would have, between the contract and that, we would have a hit in the first part of the year, and we would catch up because there's less expenses as we go.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, thank you.
We buy bulk materials.
Next on the agenda is Pop Whalen operating budget, operating report.
Here he comes.
How we doing? Brian Paul, Pop Whalen, Operation Director. All the good news first. If you go from April of this year to compared to April of last year, we've done a little over $30,000 extra in revenue than we had in the previous year.
Good for you.
Expenses were down about $3,000, but that's still a positive $27,000. We've had some great events happening. We had the community tag sale and yard sale. That was a huge success. A lot of people sent me emails and voicemails asking me if we can do it once or twice a month. We'll consider that. We did have a gentleman who was there as a vendor, who then turned around the next day and put down a deposit to run his own flea market on July 19th. So once we get his information, we will be publishing it, everything, that too. So we did end up with a sale of the pop for a day on that. We've also, as I said last time I was here, the Wedding Expo is full force. It's all over their website already. We'll start publishing it ourselves. I'm also trying to put together a home show next April, as well as a couple more of the tag sale community fairs. We've already published out, every month we'll have at least 2 themed public skates for the rest of the year, starting in August. So we're planning on getting those out there to everybody. We also are working with the Ice Skating Institute, which is a recreational figure skating and learn to skate programs. We will be the only facility in the state of New Hampshire to offer ISI recreational figure skating and learn to skate. We're actually looking for instructors and a figure skating director to help us out. So, Brian, you volunteering?
I played hockey.
So we are working very diligently on that.
Well, funny story. My aunt, who's passed, actually started training Nancy Kerrigan when she was younger, and my cousins were all junior champions for figure skating down in the Stoneham rink. My mother was a figure skater also.
Okay, so we've established that he's played hockey, so he knows how to tie his shoes. He's got family members that have done figure skating. You are the new director of the figure skating thing. You're in. I mean, come on. This gentleman knows how to sell us good news. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
All right, any questions for Brian?
I do. Right?
I think this is great. I'm impressed. John?
So the town calendar, can we advertise any of those yard sales, tag sales, or any of these other things on our town's website calendar?
Or on the community calendar.
Right.
Yeah.
Once I get everything in line and up online, because this is all for 2026, we definitely will. I forgot one other thing I forgot to mention. I did put together a 3-on-3 youth tournament for August 23rd and 24th. We already have teams as far away as Lynn, Massachusetts that have signed up for it.
Lynn, City of Sin.
And that was only put out 2 days ago. And I've already gotten 4 phone calls, and one team has already actually given us money for it. So
how do they get attracted so quick?
I published it on a bunch of social media sites that I know people that are hockey fanatics look at, as well as 4 ice hockey tournament national websites that don't cost us anything. They're just free to publish. So I put them up there, as well as we have posted it on our social media also.
So is the town sponsoring those flea market days?
The 2 that I mentioned for next year, yes, we're hosting those. The flea market on July 19th is done by a private citizen who is paying for the rental of the facility and running his own flea market.
So will he have to advertise on his own, or?
We offered to obviously help bring people in and obviously encourage more people to have more events at our facility, so I don't have to do all the heavy lifting. Literally, those tables were heavy. Was to encourage people to do it, so we'll advertise it on our social media. I just asked them to get me a flyer and stuff like that, so we'll advertise it out on when it is. The only big question that we have, and I've got to do some research on, is signage for Pop Whalen. That was the biggest complaint we got during the craft fair, was that a lot of people don't know where Pop Whalen is. There's no state signs out on Route 28, as well as a lot of people asked if we can put out those yard signs along the route both from Tuftonboro to the Pop, as well as Route 28. And I don't know, to be honest, I have not researched it yet to see what town ordinance are for putting those type of signs out.
Any input on that, Jim?
Yeah, that is something that we will talk about.
Here's an unusual idea. Is there any way we could name the road going into that facility so that when people go to look for the facility on GPS or something, is it a named road?
It is not, and that is something that I believe, based on some of the new 911 protocols, based on the fact that there's more than one building on that location, they may actually require that it be named. Is that correct, Chief?
A deep breath.
I'm opening a can of worms.
No, it's a good idea.
Worm can.
I'd have to look at the specifics, but if memory serves, you got at least 3 buildings.
Yep.
So I believe it's feasible. I believe Steve Randall is at least temporarily handling the street naming and numbering, so I'd be happy to discuss it with
Not a
him
bad
if it's
idea.
something you want to pursue.
It would be easier for people to find you then, because you give them an address.
Located at 1 Pop Whalen Drive might be, yeah.
Well, you got to watch out, because you have Abenaki there, too.
I think it's a great idea.
So as far as the main entrance sign, he makes a good point. We don't have Abenaki. It's always been Abenaki, now Pop Whalen. Do we have a plan?
So I think that was one of the things that Brian identified very early on in him coming here, even in his interview process, that the place is under-advertised, and I think that's something that, now that he's getting his feet under him, I think he's identified that, okay, this is something that we can look at and work in conjunction with the state to see if we can get some signage up.
If I could, and I don't mean to do this in any way other than to be supportive of what Jim just said. John, I don't think we have a theory, because if you think, at least the way I think about it, Abenaki, the hill, has been the draw. The pop has been work in progress. We have this gentleman here who's just turning the crank and starting to get some, lift. And so now we have that Pop Whalen facility is starting to get a little bit of air cover. We got the hills getting a little bit of air cover. And oh, by the way, we got trails out there that are getting a little bit of air cover. So it may be a right time to think about that whole idea. How do we name that entranceway? We'll have to get Steve Randall and the chief to figure out whether it's 2 buildings, 3 buildings, whatever. But if I could one more thing. So earlier you heard me ask Sam, because I look at your revenues and it's a bell-shaped curve. I mean, your revenues kind of go, in the springtime, which has always been the concern we have. So as we get into the July timeframe, you're going to be looking in your funnel and telling us what you think you got coming in, right?
Well, I will say that I do keep a very good...
I know you do.
Forecast.
Yeah.
I would say right now, we are probably looking at about a $15,000 to $20,000 plus revenue from what our budget was set.
I'm not going to hold you to it, but that's an exciting thought.
Unfortunately...
Because we still got a long way to go.
Unfortunately,
You'll take care of that shortly.
You got a long way to go.
The next item on the agenda...
yes, you're going to be asking us for money. I got that.
It's going to ruin that, but yes.
But, but listen to what just, and I'm not holding you to it, but listen to what got said. There is a view, and I'm sure if we sat down and looked over your shoulder at your laptop and the phone calls you're making, there's a view that you might be plussing up this facility. That's great. That was important.
Well, just so you know where I'm coming from with that, we will be open approximately 4 weeks earlier of our ice time. And we're also got to remember, we've increased the fees by 15%. So that October, November, December, which is our busiest months, you can add 15% to what we had in the past, added to that, not to mention all of the very high rates we've been getting lately of public stick and public skating times.
Yeah, I want to go back to the naming of the road, but I think we should kind of take a look at the whole complex, because it really is a four-season complex when we start using the pop for some of the summer stuff and our bike trails.
Yeah.
And then we have skiing, so it is a big recreation area. So as we think about it, we should think of it in its entirety.
Recreation Lane.
So
Mega center.
Recreation Lane. And you could have one recreation lane as pop, 2 recreation
Anybody
lanes.
have any more questions right now?
Yep, could be.
Thank you. Nice job.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
So he's got another item.
Hey, stick around. Tell us what you need.
He's going to stand up here and
the next one?
discuss.
Now you'll
for the
take
bad
care of
news
all
now.
that good news quickly.
Yeah, right.
Okay, next on our agenda is discussion of the compressor issues at Pop Whalen.
So I had reached out to you, advising you of some concerns that we had relative to the compressor, the condenser for the facility. Regardless, we have got to do these repairs. I asked Brian to go out and find secondary quotes. He's done that. He's provided them for you. These repairs have to be done. If they don't get done, we're not going to open the facility. I would also say we were advised before we actually started this project by the preferred vendor here, or the original vendor here, that this system was halfway through its useful life, and that we would be in a position that this system would last for a number of years longer. Unfortunately, due to some of the buildup which has occurred in the condenser, it's caused problems with the compressors, and Brian can speak to it in depth a little bit more, but we're going to have to spend some funds.
So here's the bad news. On January 2nd of this year, the 12-cylinder, which is our big compressor, literally blew apart inside.
Lovely.
We tried to have Prefer come out. We spent a significant amount of money that they kept saying they could fix it, and it never went up. We actually used the 8-cylinder for the rest of the season. It held on and kept us going for the whole year. At the end of this year, the 8-cylinder was sounding very tired, to say it nicely. The belief was that it overheated, but we kept catching it, shutting it down. When we caught the overheating, we would call Preferred Mechanical to come out to look at it. By the time they got here, because they're way down in southern Massachusetts, it's at least a 3.5, 4-hour ride. The thing would cool down, they would restart it and say, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong. And it just overheated. What we have found was the biggest culprit is the minerals in the water, because it is not filtered from coming in the building to go into the compressors. And it's building up on the condenser tubes and on the oil intake, which is the picture that we have submitted to you that has full of blockage, to say it nicely. We asked Preferred what their recommendations are. They gave us a quote that they said the only way you can fix it is to replace the condenser tubes and replace the 12-cylinder with another rebuilt one, and they would only guarantee it for a year. The problem was the last time they did it was in February. The thing sat for 6 months before it was used again, so we lost 6 months of our warranty without even it operating. We then called in, I called another company who actually had reached out to me about something else. They said that they do not deal with those type of issues, and actually recommended me to Preferred and to American Refrigeration. I reached out to my other rinks that I've dealt with. All of them say the place to go is American Refrigeration. We had them come out and look at it. He has told us, one, he does not believe we need to replace the condenser tubes. He thinks he could drill them and clean them and they would be fine, which is about a $20,000 savings right there. They believe they can rebuild the 12-cylinder. They need to come out and basically tear it down. It's going to cost us about $3,000 for them to tear it out to see exactly what's going on. His main recommendation, which is what I've actually been saying since December, because when I heard about the buildup, I said, why don't we filter our water? He suggested buying a pool filter, have a plumber come in, filter the water in, so you get the minerals out, so you're not having the buildup, and to have the condenser tubes and stuff cleaned yearly. Because the last time we can find anything is that Preferred Mechanical hasn't cleaned the condenser tubes in a little over 2 years. So my recommendation is that we go with American Refrigeration. I think it's going to be, even though they may be a little bit higher price on their on the compressor, They're going to save us money on the condenser tubes, and they seem to make a little more sense. And from what I gather from other people, they're the company to go with. They deal with 120 rinks in the area. They've been doing it for 35 years. They have people that are less than 2 hours away at any given time that they can get here. They actually deal with the Brewster Arena also. So they're in Wolfeboro on a regular basis. And that's all I got for you.
all you got.
Unfortunately, we don't have a written thing from them because they just came out on Friday to look at it and give us an idea of what we're looking at. And they used to be the contractor for the POP.
Really?
Prior to Preferred being given the contract.
When did Preferred become our contractor? Just curious.
From what I gather was just before the rink reopened 3 years ago.
That is correct.
Did Preferred do the install or the move with the equipment to the new rink?
They did some of the installation work. That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I am heading towards American. We've already had Preferred rebuild the thing once, and it didn't last a year. So that makes me leery to go back to that company.
And the other thing is American Refrigeration has told us verbally, they have not told us in writing yet, I will get it in writing, that they will warranty it for 12 months of active use
Operation.
time. So when we're closed down, they will not count that as part of the warranty.
Yeah. I just think once they haven't performed and it hasn't lasted, so we go try something else. What do we have to lose?
Go for 2 out of 3?
Yeah, and this one will give us another 6 months. The other one wouldn't, so.
Will they be servicing this on a yearly basis now?
I think that's what you said.
So here's
Well, I mean the tubes.
Here's the problem with that right now. So we paid $15,000 for a maintenance agreement that we signed at the beginning of January with Preferred. That's supposed to be a spring and a fall maintenance contract. They did the spring. Americans questioning if they did everything that was supposed to be on there to us. Of course, we didn't sit there and babysit them and watch every move that they did to verify that they really did what they said they were supposed to do. So basically, we have a $7,500 maintenance for the fall. I'm almost inclined to say, should we eat the $7,500? We'll figure out how to get more revenue out of this place and sign an agreement with American on a maintenance contract.
Mr. Chairman?
Paul?
So I'm not a mechanic,
Neither am I.
but when I look at something like what you've shown us, and you say the culprit could be that we have water creating some kind of crusty stuff in that thing, that's pretty evident. And when was this photograph taken?
That photograph was taken a year ago.
Okay. So I'm supportive of where you want to go with this. As it relates to the incumbent, I don't think that I can do anything but give Jim and you the advice that says, work it out with the incumbent. Work it out. Having one supplier critique another supplier's work most oftentimes gets into like crappy conversations. And I don't think my personal thing is we're talking about small money. So I would advise you work it out, but with a leaning towards we don't have to pay it. That would be my sense. Right? Work it out, and you'll figure out a way to do it, I'm sure. That's not one of those leading things, but I would say you can figure out how to do that. So if we were to say go ahead, when would they commence operations on this
So
thing?
in less than a week, American's going to come out and tear it all down to see exactly what.
And they're going to bring up the big old pool filter.
Well, the pool filter, they suggested for us to.
Just go hire somebody to get it done.
They said we must have a town plumber, there must be somebody that we can use. He goes, it'll cost you about $300 for a pool filter and about another $200 to plumb it into the system.
You just need to, again, I'm not a mechanic, but you need to make sure
Cartridge
that the capacity coming out of that filter and going into that filter, it doesn't create impedance on what's being sucked into the tubes.
And they said basically with the water that he knows, the guy from American Refrigeration, because he was the same guy who was here prior, said knowing the water in the well, he said we probably would need to change the filter once a month.
Probably a scale in it, yeah.
Okay.
Where do you,
Any other questions? John?
So I'm in business, so if I was to run two separate people doing the same project, one wouldn't want to enjoy knowing somebody else was doing or cutting in on that territory. So my question is about the maintenance contract going forward. Is it about the same, or is it a little bit?
It's about the same. American Refrigeration suggested that one of the things that we don't see on the preferred maintenance contract is the cleaning of those condenser tubes.
right.
That should be done on a yearly basis, especially knowing our water supply. Even if we filter it, he goes, it's just safer. It makes things last longer. For the extra, as he put it, extra hour that they have to spend there, it's money worth spending.
So if you do the filter and then they clean it 1 year, they clean it another year, and then they figure out that it's not getting as much buildup, at that point you could reevaluate and say, well, maybe we've got things covered, and so we don't have to.
And maybe do it every other year or something.
Yeah.
Right, and I've only been with this system for 6 months here. So I'm going off of what, I see and what I'm hearing from experts, and then I literally will talk to people at other facilities and say, what does this sound like to you that I know, one of the person I talked to is a guy that runs a rink down in Marlboro, Mass for 10 rinks under one roof. They deal with lots of compressors. And I said, what does this sound like to you? And, he gave me his recommendation of what to do. And I think we're heading in the right direction for it. Because I don't want this to come back to bite us, 2 years down the road.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my other point. If you get the new guy to rebuild it, and he's going to stand behind it, and he's going to run that thing for the future, I would do what Paul says. Try to figure it out. Get the new guy to operate the system, and move on.
What are the chances of getting a money back from our contract?
Work it out.
They're going to work that out, Brian.
Yeah.
Work it out.
I mean, we'll talk to them.
Yeah.
They weren't even willing to
Work
give
it
us
out.
a price break on redoing.
Yeah.
So that gives me my answer. They're going to be tough.
Yeah, we don't have the figures from American Refrigeration. I'm willing to go forward with it, giving Jim the permission, if the price is just too high, to not move forward with it. Because in comparison, because we don't have the figures. I hate to say, oh, do that, and I don't have a
Right. Well,
figure. And we want to get them here, is my understanding. And so I'm very comfortable. We know where the range of this is, that unless it's really out of whack, that Jim is the one, once he sees those figures, to give the go-ahead.
Right.
Yeah, and I would just note that Brian really did do his diligence on this. He as well reached out to see what it would cost to bring in a rental compressor. He's looked at both options of the two maintenance providers. So he is really getting this run down to the most efficient and hopefully the best person to provide the maintenance for this unit. As alluded to earlier, the previous vendor did go through and clean those tubes, and for some reason that's not in the purview of the current contract, and that's some conversations that we've got to have with that vendor.
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, if anybody understands how a refrigerant system works, it heats and condenses gases and ungases, and it pulls up oil through the compressors, because the compressors have to be lubricated. So what those tubes are clogged with is a mixture of mineral sediments, oil, and whatnot. And they probably should be cleaned on a regular basis. And if we keep having failures, then that means that the company that is maintaining it now might not be maintaining it correctly.
Okay, so you and Jim will get together, work out the numbers, keep us informed as to what's going on.
Yeah.
We will.
I mean, like I said, the main thing right now is, I think, to spend the $3,000 for them to come tear it down. I think it'll be worth it. And then they'll be able to give us real numbers, because they'll see what really is going on, because they don't think the 8-cylinder might not need a whole redo. It might just need a good cleaning out, is what they told us. So we might even be able to save on having to do anything on the 8-cylinder.
Do we need a motion for that, Jim?
No, you don't.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Thanks for this. I mean,
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
the alternative is you do nothing, and then we're in deep doo-doo.
Okay, next on our agenda is discussion with Wolfeboro Fire Rescue and Ambulance update.
The chief.
Mr. Zotti.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tom Zotti, Fire Chief. I prepared a brief PowerPoint because, frankly, it helps prompt my memory as we present this to you, and we also have some pictures. It occurred to us a month or so ago that we, after the vote at town meeting to move forward with the ambulance project, we hadn't done a formal update for you folks and, by default, the public. And a lot of things have been happening, so we thought it's probably an appropriate time to kind of bring everybody up to speed. Good. As you know, part of the project included hiring a deputy chief of EMS. The posting closed in April. We had 9 applicants, of which we felt 4 were worth following up on. We did use fire service literature and websites and so forth to advertise. We also used Indeed. Some of the ones that came from Indeed, frankly, I think are triggered by keywords or something, and didn't, frankly, seem relevant to what we were looking for. We convened an oral board. We interviewed 4 at an oral board on the 5th of May. Last week, 2 candidates spent an afternoon with the staff, just having a chance to get more familiar with the individuals, ask questions in a more informal setting. We're in the process of reviewing that feedback, and we expect to make a recommendation to Jim imminently. Firefighter EMTs, it's been a long day. The posting closed at the end of April. We had a total of 8 applicants. Again, a few of those were from Indeed, and frankly, we made a determination that someone from Southern California was not going to move here for a firefighter job. So again, we presume those applicants were triggered by a keyword search in Indeed. We held an assessment center today. We had 4 scheduled for the assessment center for the 3 positions that you're aware of. 1 withdrew yesterday. So we held the assessment center today. I think the 3 candidates we worked with today are solid. We're literally this afternoon reviewing their performance today, and we'll be deciding very shortly on recommendations on path forward. I believe it's fair to say we're on schedule for our anticipated July hiring of the firefighter EMTs. The existing staff, 2 of our current advanced providers have been accepted into the accelerated paramedic program at Lakes Region Community College in Laconia. That will start in August. We are reviewing proposals to host an advanced EMT class here in Wolfeboro. With a little luck, it will be the first formal scheduled class at the new public safety building in the training room. I'm working through logistics with the provider. Like we say, they will come here. We have several basic providers today who are interested in advancing to the advanced EMT level. Frankly, the most cost-effective way for us, we felt, to do that was to bring the program here. We're not paying for travel and so forth, and it's literally in our backyard. The timing is such that we hope to capture the new hires who may not be advanced EMTs already. So we would be looking to start the program roughly Labor Day. I'm working through the actual schedule in terms of hours per week and so forth. We want to accelerate the program a little bit, but at the same time not overwhelm the students. The class has a minimum of 12. I have reached out to surrounding chiefs. They assure me that we have a number of people in surrounding departments who would make up the difference to meet the minimum. So we're working on that. That, if all holds, would run through early 2026, at which point the students would be released for their clinical time. I am working with the provider to see if, in some cases, after a certain point in the class, they can begin clinical time before the class is actually ended. So we'll be looking at that. And again, the timing was such that should our proposed new hires not be already advanced EMTs, we could incorporate them into the program. As you know, part of the project was to purchase a used ambulance. You may remember the name Fleet Masters. They have been our dealer that we've worked with for almost 10 years now for our fire apparatus. The last 3 fire apparatus purchases have been working through Fleet Masters and Seagrave. Fleet Masters representatives were aware that we were looking for a used ambulance in reference to this project. They are also an ambulance dealer. If you might have remembered Charlie Nixis, who is the rep we work with pretty closely, he reached out to his network and we identified a used ambulance at a dealer in New Jersey that would appear to meet our needs. It was actually town meeting day. Our representatives of our truck committee, 2 of our members, and the head mechanic, Ben Berry, flew to New Jersey to look at the vehicle at Fleet Master's expense. They were willing to do that for us. They literally spent hours crawling around that vehicle and recommended that we move forward. When the vote came in and approved, we quickly moved to get a purchase order and lock up the vehicle. It is today in Auburn, New Hampshire, being striped and lettered for Wolfeboro, and we hope to see it by the end of next week. We picked up the license plates yesterday, Monday rather, and that was kind of drove home. It's coming. That purchase is the 2020 Chevy Silverado 550. It's a 4-wheel drive with a Duramax 6.6 turbo diesel. It's what we call a Type 1 ambulance. It's designed for fire service EMS. It has compartmentation in such a manner as to allow fire gear, breathing apparatus, and so forth to be carried by the personnel, but in compartments that don't communicate with the patient compartment to avoid any contamination with products of combustion and the things that come with our turnout gear. I believe it's in your backup material, but that is the ambulance, face on view.
Pretty picture.
How many miles on it?
It's got about 85,000 miles on it, which, if you're familiar with diesels, is pretty
nothing.
Basic. Long story short, the ambulance was traded in by a department in Delaware, along with a very similar twin. It was a college community. They apparently added bike lanes in the town, and felt that those ambulances were now too big for the student-run response agency that they were owned by, and they traded them in for different models, one of which sold fairly quickly, and we obviously have purchased the other one. You get a view of what it looks like from the side, and that other picture is the actual patient compartment. That is not the actual ambulance, although it's very similar. That is what the striping and badging color scheme will look like. It's white over red. All our vehicles are currently red. We elected that because it was in good condition, we're going to leave it white over red. We didn't feel the need to spend the money just to make the color work. Our current vehicles have a black stripe along the side. We elected to leave the white one. It's in good condition. It would, we're told by the gentleman who does that work, it can be problematic to remove one and try to replace it or try to cover it, frankly, and we felt it's fine. But that's essentially what it would look like. Part of the project, as you recall, was the purchase of a Car 2 for the primarily for the use of the incoming Deputy Chief of EMS. We have talked to at least 2 dealers in New Hampshire who deal with state bid pricing and so forth. We have 2 proposals that we're reviewing, and we expect to, we're working through some of the last details, and we expect to make a recommendation to the town manager within a week or 2 to move that along. We are trying to get a better handle on lead times and so forth, just to make sure we cover ourselves. We're looking at primarily an F-250 or equivalent. The object there is to provide the response vehicle, be able to, as a crew cab, bring some additional personnel to and from incidents with the back seat, and part of the back seat will be taken up by some equipment to house medical gear. Our intent is, at this point, to leave the cargo compartment essentially with a bed liner and be able to use it to transport, for example, dirty gear back and forth, hose back and forth to calls and stuff like that. Currently, our utility, at least in the summer season, has a forestry tank and pump unit in the back, so we don't have a lot of capacity to do that sort of thing. It'll also allow us another vehicle that will tow our trailers. Boat 1, when we remove it from the water and put it back in the water. Boat 2, the Gator, the Ranger, those smaller trailers. We now have a third option to get those 2 scenes. And again, we expect to place that order relatively shortly. In general, staff-wise, we've been training for the last several months with the Huggins Hospital EMS coordinator, and I would like to offer a shout-out to the staff at Huggins who've been extremely supportive in this endeavor and have made it very easy to move forward with some of our training initiatives to get us to the point where we're ready to do this. We've kind of worked from, call it the crawl, walk, run method, is, start at the basics. We've done some simulated transports and some things like that. The hospital has, it's called a SimMan. It's a rather elaborate mannequin that can be programmed for different injuries, different medical conditions, vital signs, and so forth. So you literally are hands-on evaluating patients and making decisions and getting real-time feedback. If you do something that's not effective, the patient's condition doesn't change. If it is, they get better. If it isn't, they get worse. And we've had essentially free reign with that, and it's been terrific. Our staff has spent a number of hours developing a response matrix. So moving forward, when we are at the point of beginning to provide transport services with the second ambulance, initiating some decisions as to how many members respond to the individual call. Do we respond with the ambulance and with the engine with additional people? It's essentially based on what we call call determinants. If you're familiar at all, when you make a 911 call, you may hear a medical call categorized anywhere from an alpha level, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. Alpha, based on the information provided, is a relatively minor call. It's not necessarily life-threatening. A Delta or Echo call and some Charlie calls would be an immediate response from all the duty crew that's on duty. So we've developed a matrix. We're working through the details of that and how that would work. Once we move forward with the deputy chief's position, one of the early tasks will be to develop and bring to you through the town manager recommendations on billing services, on policies regarding billing and how aggressive or however we decide to pursue that in terms of collections and so forth. I have worked with Huggins Emergency Department staff and the EMS coordinator. We have updated our medical resource hospital agreement with Huggins to reflect paramedic level transport service going forward. We've signed all the paperwork. It goes literally all the way up to the CEO of the hospital. The only piece of paper we're waiting for, and I won't go too far into the weeds, but our controlled drug agreement is awaiting selection of the deputy chief of EMS, who at the paramedic level will be personally responsible for many of the medications that we carry and the processes and security of those. So right now, not knowing who that is, that one is kind of being held in abeyance, but the rest of them are ready to go. Once we get that point, we will approach the state to upgrade our license from a non-transport agency to a transport agency. And then it becomes a matter of finishing with our onboarding of the staff and coming up to the point where we're ready to discuss with you folks, with Jim, and with the folks from Stewart's, at what point do we have them back down to a single ambulance and rerun the backup. But that's essentially where we are. I'd be happy to entertain any questions based on that. I know the two board members who were on the ad hoc committee are probably a little bit more familiar with going out into the weeds on some of this stuff than the rest, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions. There's been a lot of going on in the background, and we haven't done a lot of publicity on it because we felt it was more appropriate to update you folks before we hit the airwaves, so to speak.
Brian?
Yeah, so you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
That's
it's a team effort, believe me.
Yeah.
I can't do this by myself.
Well, I mean, the department.
It's been a lot of work.
A question with your car. An F-250?
Car 2 or car, this one, okay.
F-250 or F-150? And how much, I know it's hard, and you probably don't know yet, how much use is this car going to get? Is it going to be a heavily used car, lightly used car?
We went kind of back and forth. We elected to go with something a little larger than the 150. Number one, based on kind of a balancing of price versus features. But we wanted the additional towing capacity.
Okay.
Primarily. It's a little bit of a bigger vehicle. It does give us some degree of a more off-road capacity if we need to respond to, say, a woodlands fire and we want to tow the Ranger or the Gator to a off-road location. But we wanted a big enough vehicle, frankly, to be able to carry enough equipment enclosed in the cab and some additional people. And we kind of threw it out there. What we're getting is based on state bid. We did vary from that a little bit, as for example, the two quotes we've received. We've upgraded the alternator because, as you might imagine, with the lights and the radios and the things that we do, we tend to run a lot of power through the vehicles. So we've upgraded to a 410 amp alternator versus the standard one. But primarily, it's a balance of size versus the ability to bring equipment to and from scenes and tow our trailers and so forth.
Yeah, I can understand why the fire department needs that. This is an EMS vehicle. Is it going to be used in relationship to our ambulance service?
I'll say primary function will be to provide a vehicle with some of our specialized medical equipment, at least at first, for the deputy chief of EMS, who will be a paramedic, to be able to provide that level of service. As our staff ramps up, and like we pointed out, a couple of members have been accepted into the program. I guess I envision going forward, it would be more of a department vehicle where other members would be able to use the equipment that's on it to respond. To kind of circle back to Brian's question, I guess I would consider a medium-use vehicle. I don't think it's fair to call it lightly used because it will be on the road. But it will also have some fire functions, and that was part of the reason we pursued that as a pickup, was to be able to accomplish more than one goal, if you will.
It would be
we
used...
looked at maybe an SUV and thought, the towing capacity and so forth. For example, right now, Car 1 and the utility are the only things we have that can tow trailers. The Car 1, I wouldn't want to try to tow Boat 1. It would be a struggle. It might do it, but I'm not sure that it's got the capacity to do that because that's a big, heavy boat. We don't tow that a lot, but we felt this was kind of a good compromise between, shall we say, agility and to be able to move equipment and move people to respond to the calls.
Yet we put it in a warrant article that dealt with EMS, and that's why I'm having the issue here. It seems like we're having a utility vehicle, not something for EMS. And then we have something coming later, another vehicle. So, and if you remember the vote, what went down was purchasing other vehicles in this town. So I'm trying to weigh and trying to get a good picture of what this is and what we're going to do with it, and then the other one. And so I saw this as being used by your deputy EMS chief, and it would be going out on calls with that. Not that it was going to be towing and that it was going to have fire equipment. It seemed like it was more fire, and I guess I saw it as more EMS. That's
and I think our intent is that it is more EMS, but to probably use a bad example, I don't want to get into a situation where we have a fire incident, we have equipment and so forth that needs to come back to the station, and we have that vehicle and we say, well, we can't use it for that, we don't want to do that. The primary goal is as an EMS response vehicle. The added benefit was, for other types of incidents, it will give us some additional capability. Like any apparatus we have today, we have to balance, okay, if we tie it up with this type of incident, it's got to be available to respond. And obviously we have to account for that. But the intent is that it's primarily a EMS-related vehicle.
Brian?
It will be, so we will be talking about a captain's car later. This will be used more than a captain's car.
I'm not sure what you mean by captain's car.
I thought that we're going to be talking about sometime.
That's to replace Car 1.
So will this
agenda item?
Yeah, this will be used more than a new Car 1, or about the same?
Similar. We're still working through some of the details on, for example, Car 1 is assigned to me. I take it home. I respond from home, whatever. Depending on the successful candidate in the Deputy Chief of EMS position, we have to work through whether it would be appropriate to assign that as a, quote, take-home vehicle to that person, or have it at the station where if that individual is available, would come there and then respond to the call, or another member of the department can get it there and meet the incident and so forth.
Thanks for coming, Chief. So I think Brian asked a good question, 150 or 250, and then you said, well, we want to tow something I'll be honest with you. I think we're going to have a PR issue because one of the things that I think about is the public out there when they're thinking about what does Stewart show up at the scene when they show up. They show up in an F-250 towing something. I don't know if they do. If you have other requirements for other vehicles to tow, that would come out of the fire side of things. I had a conversation with you and I specifically asked you, are we going to stay in lanes? Ambulance service gets ambulance things, fire building gets fire things. And again, it's about what the people voted for out there and what they want to see your guys showing up at the scene with. I don't think they would probably question whether or not you're showing up with an F-250 at the scene rather than a closed-in vehicle like yours that they can pull stuff out of the back that's fully contained. And yeah, if you had a Yukon or a Tahoe or something like that, yeah, you can haul the people also, but they can haul 7,600 pounds, and you could haul something like your Gator and your trailer. I just see the lane that the people voted in, and I would strongly discourage you from buying a vehicle that has fire apparatus stuff that is not. This time around, I think you should be focusing solely on ambulance tunnel vision right now.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate the comment. I do think we made it clear in our presentations that the intent was for that vehicle to be an EMS response vehicle primarily, but we also said, you know, it will have other functions. No, I understand the concept of lanes. However, you know, the staff will overlap. The equipment to some degree will overlap. Our take on the idea of, quote, staying in the lanes was as a budget presentation, how the expenses are accounted for the ambulance side of the house, if you will, versus the fire rescue side of the house. And we certainly intend to do that. I mean, we can certainly consider something different, but I think we felt as a group it was more appropriate to have a vehicle that meets not only the EMS needs, but can have other functions as well. Presumably, it would be an approximately 10-year lifespan of a vehicle. So again, you know, we're trying to somewhat predict where we will be a few years down the road.
Well, a question, what's the gross weight with trailer of the fireboat?
I don't know that off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Couple of thousand.
It's pretty hefty.
Yeah.
Couple thousand pounds.
Just so you, and I'm sure you know this, a Ford Expedition Max can tow 9,000 pounds, which is...
It's a lot.
I would say that boat is probably under 9,000. It's pretty close. So just a thought.
So if I'm and I don't mean to interrupt the conversation about the hardware side of this thing, I do kind of sense and feel that just be judicious. Just be judicious in terms of your selection of vehicles, because I do think John makes a point. Just be judicious. That's about where I'll go with that at the moment. But can I go back and roll the tape back to your presentation?
Sure.
Thanks. So in your mind, and probably stapled in your mind too, and probably stapled on the wall, you have a Gantt chart, critical path. And I remember you referencing that when we had our committee. A question for, and you got a ton of activity here. You got more stuff to pray over than I could ever do. Are you on target to get the deputy on board per your Gantt chart? Or are you behind the schedule, or are you ahead of schedule?
I think it's fair to say we're a bit behind where we thought we'd be right now.
Okay.
And to some degree, if I can just clarify, that frankly is on me. We were given permission to advertise before the vote, and to be honest, I felt
I know.
the perception would be we were jumping the gun.
You and I had
didn't
that
want to do
conversation.
that.
I remember that. But my question is, are you in your slack time? In other words, you're behind what you thought you needed to have, but are you in the slack time where you can recover, or are you? You know what I mean? You know, you have slack time, but you have slack time, or you're out of slack time.
No, I think we do.
You're on schedule?
We've been able
But you're eating up your slack time.
move forward, for example, with some of that documentation I referred to with the hospital and so forth.
I'm asking about the deputy. I'm only asking about the deputy.
No, but my point being, we've been able to do some of that, which I think in our minds we had penciled in as a function of the deputy, so that has already been accomplished, and we can move on to the next task.
I take that back. So what you did, in lieu of having the deputy on board and then, doing that work with the hospital, y'all just jumped into that and you started getting that done. But the deputy, how far behind are you? A week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months?
3 weeks to a month, I guess, if I had to put it.
And that's assuming that you execute an offer and you bring somebody on by what's your like June, July? It's assuming
we're
you know that
hoping early to mid June.
And I'm not trying to pin you down, but one of the things that the guy with the shirt on, one of the things that Dave mentioned during this was recruitment. That's a long pole in the tent here that we have to deal. So we need to we need to just keep our eyes on the deputy. You made mention in your next chart, you said on schedule to hire 3 on about 7/1. Is 7/1 the expected time when you're supposed to bring in 3 new people, or you're off schedule? You're on schedule.
The budget for the project
But you're on
contemplated
schedule.
them starting. It's 6 months. So
Okay, but
July
you're on
1st,
schedule
whatever
for that
day of the
one.
week that happens to be.
So the deputy, we're a little off. Getting the recruits on board, you're on schedule. Okay, got that. The other one in the vehicle, I do think judicious is probably a thing. You kind of, and my personal one during this process was the back office stuff. Billing and collection, and are you on schedule to get something adjudicated there, or are you not?
No, I think we are.
You are.
Again, that I think we have, shall we say, penciled in for one of the early projects of the incoming deputy chief, because that has got some specialized knowledge attached to it that we obviously want to tap into.
So this wasn't a trick question, but to turn that around, the billing and collection thing is going to inform, or is going to be informed by what we figure out in terms of the prices we set. So you're going to have to, when are you coming forward and talking to us about pricing?
Again, that would be one of the primary early projects to work through with the deputy chief,
In your
to put
Gantt
together
chart,
a
when
package
you were
to come
supposed
into you.
In that chart you have, when were you supposed to be doing that? August?
I was going to say August, hopefully by Labor
I think
Day.
that's what you said earlier,
Yeah.
so yeah, okay. So those are the things I chew on, is, because I think Dave mentioned it during the process. Get the people on board, because if not, then we're buying time with stewards. Get the back office on board. That's going to help us figure out pricing, and then an income statement. All that stuff. That's what I worry about. The thing about the vehicles, I do think you're going to get some scrutiny, so just be judicious.
No, and I think we're open to suggestion as far as that vehicle goes, but kind of our global goal, if you will, was, again, to meet the needs and the intent of the Warren article and the ambulance project, but at the same time have some ability to, use it for, I'll say, related things. Because again, going forward, as much as the intent is and will be to maintain separate budgets to identify the expenses associated with the ambulance and so forth, in the end of the day, it's one department with one group of people and one group of equipment.
So is this is this an opportunity to go chew on that question, Jim, and then come back? Is that kind of the,
Which question?
this truck thing?
So I think that the chief came to me early on about it. We had a conversation. My initial vision was that you put out an RFP for car one and the deputy's vehicle at the same time, get two very similar vehicles. He was able to articulate to me, sitting in my office, that the utilization of a pickup truck offers significantly more flexibility to the department as a whole than a second SUV. Based on that conversation, I thought about it, and I said, okay, go ahead out and get pricing for a pickup truck based on your opinion. With that said, I do have to concur with him. You know, the catchment of items that a paramedic tends to carry is going to be a backpack with the narcotics and regulated medications that are traditionally in a sealed container in a warm environment in excess of 50 degrees. So I think that there is some benefit to going forward with the pickup. I guess the only question that I don't know the answer to is what was contemplated at the ad hoc committee.
I don't know that we got too far into the details of the type of vehicle.
I don't think we got into the VIN numbers of vehicles we wanted to do. I don't.
It was just discussion of a vehicle, and we kind of worked up some budget numbers for a vehicle.
But Linda's poking at something that she should, and that's what we told the public.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm coming back to on that. And, you know, we had, I thought we'd have car one and car two. It sounds like we're going to have truck one and truck two, because this is more of a truck than it is a car.
So,
and it's just as I'm, you know, the citizens just read the things. They don't, and I didn't bring that because I didn't know we were going to go. I brought some stuff on car one, where I have some real concerns. But I think Jim and staff is in one place, but I think us 5 Board of Selectmen are in another place because the voters voted down all the other vehicles. And that's what John is talking about. That's what I felt when I started to see being asked for 2 vehicles, one here and then to replace car one.
Dave.
And trying to balance out and make sure that I could come up with good rationale and reasons why I would vote for either one or both of them. And that's what my questions are, as why I try to sort. The guy on the corner comes to me and said, well, why in the world did you do that? What did you ask? And so that's why I'm asking my questions, because I had pictured it as another, similar to your car, a chief's car, and then the one for the head of EMS, not a pickup truck. That's just my perception.
Based on the feedback, if we can certainly reconsider it. Like I said, I don't see this as a deal breaker. If the board is more comfortable with an SUV, we will still retain the ability to tow and so forth. And if the perception is that it's more comfortable moving forward, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. It's just we thought it would provide, again, some more flexibility going forward. But if the perception of what it is and what it does is a concern, we can revisit it.
What car do you currently have now? What is it?
It's an Expedition.
So Did some quick numbers here looking. The Expedition Max gets 16 miles per gallon, city 22, highway. The truck, the F-250 Super Duty you're looking at, gets 18 on the highway and 15 on the city. So it loses a little bit of mileage. That's not a big deal. The range for price in the Super Duty pickup truck is $45,000 to $92,000. The Expedition is $66,900. So I have no problem if you spend $67,000 on an Expedition or $67,000 on a Super Duty 250 pickup truck, because the same price is the same price.
Necessarily prepared to move on a lot of details on the Car 2 tonight, but I can tell you that the quote we received that we are sitting on and hopefully pursuing was slightly north of 49.
Okay, so that comes out to the same price as not even the Expedition Max, but that's a regular level Expedition. So the F-250 comes out to the same price. So now I feel better.
That's before you fit it up, right?
Yeah.
That's before.
That's before you
the
fit it
fit
up.
up is
Yeah.
a separate quote,
Correct.
but yes.
And I'm going by just regular cars, not police vehicles. So as long as there isn't a huge price discrepancy between the two, if they're close and they're going to work for the department, I have no problem spending $49,000 on an Expedition or $49,000 on a Super Duty truck and have to defer to the experts who use them every day. They know what they need.
Well, I don't think we're going to solve this tonight. So I think it would be wise if Tom goes back, town manager gets involved with it as well, and bring a couple of proposals to us. One is what John and Linda have both mentioned, that what does the public perceive in what they voted on? And I think we need to look at that between now and the next time, because I'm not going to ask for motion tonight. I'm not, somebody else might, on Vehicle 2. Car 1, which is coming up next, that's a different issue. That should be separated from this at this time. But I think that this issue, I don't think there's any question about the ambulance, that's coming, all that stuff. Sounds like your personnel is lining up okay. You're going to be within reason of your schedule, as Paul has suggested. And I think that you and Jim need to come up with pros and cons on both, present them to us.
So-
And again, the committee, which
Yeah.
Paul was on, what their intent was.
No,
That's,
Yeah.
at some point, you need to deal with that.
I just, and
All right,
I
so-
like the conversation that went that way. My selfish interest at the moment is onboarding of the head count and getting the ops. That one, I haven't changed my tune on that one, so
John?
I want to make sure you're in there. Sorry.
So, to Paul's point, when this was all set up, I said to Paul, I said, what are we going to do about the billing and collections? It seems to be one of the most important things. So what I'm thinking about is I'm thinking about you being able to provide us a concrete timeline of all the things that you need to get in line. Your billing and collections, your officers, all these things, timeline, lay it out on a sheet for us so we can actually look at it and we can have some confidence. And then we can report back to the public and say, he's on track, this is what's going on.
Now, I think I heard the chief say that, and I, my mind is mush, but I think during the committee thing, we were thinking August to have clarity on the billing collection discussion, which include pricing. So, and I think I heard you say that just a few minutes ago. So
I think our
I think we should pencil in on the August timeframe that we're going to be getting an education session on pricing, billing, collections, reimbursement, who's going to do it, that. So in that August timeframe, we should be in there.
Well, the only thing I was thinking about was just about what you just said. It's like if we don't have those things in line perfectly, then we are looking to possibly go another year if we don't have everything all squared away.
We are going
We-
another
we-
year, though.
Yes. We didn't anticipate any revenue here
Right.
till 2027.
Right.
So, yes, we want to get billing and collections settled and on board and ready to move forward, but neither the MRI report or the ad hoc committee report contemplated any revenue till 2027. So once those are in place, whether it's technically August or closer to the end of the year, it hasn't, quote, cost us anything.
I would suggest that we can put together a Gantt chart outlining some timeframes and get that back to you in the August timeframe, without
There you go.
question. And hopefully at that point, we'll have a deputy chief on board who will be able to speak to the benchmarks going forward.
Thank you.
And there are billing companies that do this. It's not like you have to design and build something. And
We've compiled a list of companies used by area departments and so forth, and along with a list of others that we would, once we settle on policies and procedures and so forth, when we put out the RFP, we want to make sure we send it to them to, get the maximum reach
and
to get
will,
the best company.
will
that'll work.
Stewart's be assisting you too?
Informally, yes. I mean, we've had a lot of discussions about this sort of thing.
Linda?
Yeah, even though we're asking you all these questions and pushing at you, I'm really thankful for all the work that you've done.
No, we understand. It's a big project. I get it.
Yeah, and you have a lot on, but I think we're out on a limb here, and we're really as anxious as you are to make sure. And my understanding was that we weren't going to get any of the billing and that stuff until the deputy got on board, and I
Right,
think
and
that's
that
what
was-
we told the
That's why
public.
he's on the critical path.
And again, I think, my goal in this and a lot of things, frankly, is to put as many eyeballs on it as we can. And if these eyeballs are saying there's a concern about the vehicle, we can look at it. That's not
Okay.
a
That's what
problem.
we're doing.
Yep, fine.
Okay.
Thank you,
Dave,
Chief.
I would just add one more thing for the board. In your budget report on the bottom of page 14 of the budget, 14 and 15, those funds that were approved for the warrant article have been rolled into an ambulance budget. So you can see those expenses going forward in the report as to what's being expended in that budget under ambulance services. It was not rolled into the fire department.
And I keep going back to, Jim, you've already done this once in Littleton, didn't you?
So it was my capstone project for my master's program. I left Littleton and came to Wolfeboro previous to it being taken on in Littleton. Since that time, Littleton did take on full-blown ambulance transport services under the model that was developed by myself and the chief at the time up there.
So between that and our very capable department, I'm feeling very, very confident.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move along here. Our next item is
We
capital.
did have, I'm sorry, we had one more aspect of that before we get to that request that.
Oh, what's that?
Yep. Yep, right, this part.
Yes, if I
Yeah.
may. Several weeks ago, Selectman DeShays forwarded an email to myself and I believe to the town manager, asking from I'll say constituent, I guess, asking about our response to the recent fire on North Line Road. I'll admit to, frankly, being a little peeved with the tone of the comments. However, after sleeping on it for an evening, I said, you know what, this is a teaching moment. So in an effort to answer the question, I've put together a bit of a, let's say, a hypothetical single-family home fire and how we typically respond, and I think it'll address the concerns that were brought forward. The questions were around the specific fire on North Line Road. The example I'm about to share with you, I'll say frankly, is loosely based on that. It's not specific to that incident, but I think it illustrates the point. of a typical single-family home. Dispatch received a call around 2:30 in the afternoon for an appliance fire at an address that is not in the hydrant district. The on-duty staff, again, loosely based on the incident in question, I was away at a doctor's appointment on my way back, driving in the snow at 20 miles an hour. My head was exploding, listening to what was going on, and I'm stuck in traffic, and you know how that goes, but that's a different issue.
Coffee in hand.
The deputy was on duty in the building. The staff on duty responded with engine 3 and engine 2. On the way to the incident, dispatch received information that the occupants evacuated after attempting to extinguish a fire in their kitchen. At that point, a first alarm was requested, which starts the mutual aid system. On arrival, there was heavy fire visible from the front of the building, at which point a second alarm was requested because we knew we had a significant incident. As far as personnel, which I think was the thrust of the question from the constituent, to handle an incident like this, we're looking at an incident commander who, in many cases, is the highest ranking officer on scene, probably most cases is the highest ranking officer on scene. In this case, it was the deputy, as again, I was out of town. Call that one. Obviously, as part of our strategies and tactics, we need to stretch a hand line to put water on the fire to extinguish it. That is a minimum of 2 firefighters, typically, to stretch that line and begin a fire attack. We also have to staff a backup line. As you can imagine, during an actual fire incident, the people on the end of the hose are doing what they're trained to do, but they're at significant risk to their safety and are evaluating the conditions as they proceed and so forth. So it's our procedure, as is common in the fire service, we will have at least 1 second line staffed to back them up should they run into a problem. We need somebody to operate the pump on the fire engine to supply water to those operations. In a perfect world, the backup hand line would be from a different vehicle than the attack line to avoid that single point of failure concern. Doesn't happen a lot, but it's, best practice is to try to have some redundancy in the system. Generally, we need 2 or 3 firefighters to ladder the building. In this instance, in our example, it's a 2-story building. It may be something where we can access it with truck 5, with the aerial, depending on distance from the road, driveway length, and so forth. That may or may not be feasible. Even if it is, we typically want to ladder at least 1 emergency egress, if you will, on each side of the building, preferably more. Generally, that will take 2 to 3 firefighters to accomplish. In normal operations, we create what's called a rapid intervention crew, which is specifically tasked with rescuing our personnel should they get into trouble in the building. It's best practice, it's done pretty much everywhere, and also it is state law. With very few exceptions, we're required to have a crew standing by to rescue our members should they get into trouble. Perfect world, that would be 3, if not 4 people. More commonly, it's 2 to 3. Now, remember, this is outside the hydrant district. So our water supply is at least a half mile away, if not more. So we're tasked then with how do we maintain a water source to these engines fighting this fire. In the incident in question, we were able to use the hydrants at the base of the hill near the transfer station, and another on Center Street. In the end, I don't believe we used the Center Street hydrant, but we had crews there ready to start to fill vehicles should we need to. Now, to get that water supply to the scene, you need a number of engines, tankers preferably, but engines, to transport that water and then supply the other vehicles. And, you know, if we're looking at 3 to 4 of those to transport water with at least a driver, that's 4 more people. Once the incident commander has exceeded the span of control, we probably will appoint somebody, and we typically do, to be the water supply officer. That person's responsibility is to coordinate that water supply, take that load off the incident commander, and make sure it happens. We do have ambulances standing by, generally one, if it's a significant occupancy, a lot of people or so forth. We may have more than one, but we have them standing by on the scene in a position where they can respond to the hospital should a civilian or one of our people need to be transported. Municipal electric is routinely called to secure the power to the building at some point during the incident. In this case, where we did access hydrants a distance away, we always notify the water department. Depending on the situation, they may respond to the scene. They may come later after we leave to make sure the hydrants are pumped out if they're subject to freezing and so forth, and do that sort of thing. I can't speak for them. Typically, it's one person. Maybe occasionally it's 2. So we're up to 14 firefighters on this scene, and we haven't rotated anybody through the process. The original 2 are still on that hand line. At some point, they're going to come out and have to be relieved, and so forth. As I know you're aware, under our current model of operation, we may only have 2 people on duty. So if we don't call for our mutual aid partners, I'll call this a rhetorical question, where do we get these people? We don't have a lot of full-blown building fires, and we're grateful for that. But when we do, we need to call on our neighbors, as they do to us. I can say with full confidence that our department has never been staffed to address a actual building fire without calling for help in some way, shape, or form. No town around us is staffed to do that without calling for help in some way, shape, or form. And I would venture to guess that if you look at run cards in places like Concord and Manchester and Rochester and the Seacoast, they may not have mutual aid at the scene, but they're covering their stations and they're doing other things. And I don't say this, I don't mean this to be a confrontational thing, but this is what we are faced with. It's the way we operate. It's typical. Again, we do not have dozens and dozens and dozens of these things, as you're aware. Our off-duty members do respond, but as you can imagine, based on time of day, family responsibilities, whatever, that, you know, we don't necessarily know who's available until they sign on our app, and we can look at the thing and say, yep, I've got this person, and this person coming. In the recent case in question, I believe we had 5 off-duty members respond. Our additional resources, again, come from our mutual aid partners. Approximately 3 years ago, we reviewed our run cards. I know Selectman Thurston and I had a conversation about run cards when he came by the station. What we did was revise them, frankly, in an effort not to try to strip other communities. The idea being, and I'll use Tuftonboro as an example, we have a first alarm response, and perhaps our older run cards would ask for 2 engines out of Tuftonboro, which is fine, and they've always been terrific. But we revised them to, generally speaking, reflect 1 piece of apparatus from different communities rather than 2, because they still have to deal with their own emergencies while this is going on. I think it's worked well. I don't want to say drawback, but the concern expressed by the person who contacted Selectman Deshays was the number of communities who responded. Well, by changing our run cards and not getting multiple resources from 1 community, we involve more communities, generally speaking. And that, I think, is why the list of agencies that responded to a particular incident is as long as it is. at the end of the day, the system works. You know, we're not, I don't think any of us are in a position to move forward with a budget request for 16 people on duty 24/7. Nobody wants to pay for that. We get it.
You're not running the Boston Fire Department.
But, you know, that's the kind of
You can ask.
personnel we need to address a typical, and I say typical in only, you know, size of the building and that sort of thing, a typical single-family home fire with no particular exposures to other buildings.
My dad was chief of the fire department.
I hope this answers the question of the individual who contacted Brian. I'm happy to answer any questions from the board. We understand that you folks understand how this works and wasn't necessarily a question you had. And I would encourage, you know, any board member or anybody in the public, if you have a question about something you saw or heard or thought you saw or heard, my phone numbers are all over websites and everything else. Stop by the station. We'll show you around.
Or drop by a coffee shop.
Or, yeah. But, you know, at this point, I think I'm happy to entertain any questions that you folks
I have
might
a question. So, Chief, thank you for that, what you just described. As you were going through this, I was saying, what precipitated what is the question that you were being asked?
I mean, I guess I received what appeared to be a cut and paste. I don't know if it was the entire question that was asked or part of it. I think as I took the concern, it was that the response was, quote, self-aggrandizing because of the number of agencies involved. Why can't we put out fires like we used to do by ourselves, which is an absolutely false statement. That was kind of I would defer to Brian. I mean, he received it, and I think he's more familiar with the actual wording. Frankly, we took it as a criticism of the way we do business, coming from a place of ignorance, frankly, and it's somewhat upsetting. But again, once I kind of caught my breath and said, you know what, maybe this is a teaching moment, we can kind of explain and hopefully answer the question, and anybody else who has expressed that, perhaps expressed that concern, this is why.
See, I didn't understand why you have, I know there's a need, but I didn't understand exactly what the protocol was for a fire and how people get there and how many and why and the reasoning. And when this citizen approached me and asked me why there was so much that happened there, how can they manage so many people? Why do they need all this? I said, I don't know. And I will forward it to the proper people and see if we can get a great explanation. I will now timestamp this and send it to that individual so they can see the presentation of why it happens.
And again, we're more than happy to answer questions as they come about. You know, and it's not unusual, too, for us to initiate a first alarm based on the information we receive. When we arrive on scene, okay, this isn't what somebody thought it was, and we cancel them. It happens to us all the time, and we do it. We're not trying to deliberately get all these people rolling to our incident unless we can articulate a need for them. And so it's not particularly unusual to, you know, based on the call, for example, a smoke in the building, we will probably start a first alarm right out the door. And if we come to find out that it's something less than it appears, we then say, thank you, no thanks, we're good, as do our neighbors to us.
I pointed to the individual and said, if just our fire department had tried to handle the Hunter's fire by themselves,
there you go,
it would have spread to a lot of downtown.
I mean, and that is the outlier, absolutely, but it illustrates the point. I think we counted at that time either at the scene or backfilling for other departments who were at the scene. I believe there were 27 agencies that moved in some way, shape, or form that night. Again, that is not a common incident. But it illustrates the system, I believe.
And it was amazing that buildings that were so close to that building were completely unscathed. It amazes me the job you guys did.
In all honesty, the duty crew that night made good decisions going out the door. The mutual aid departments, we had 5 aerials on the scene. which protected those exposures. Obviously, we don't have 5 aerials, and if you remember, that was after ours was delivered and wasn't even in service yet. That, you know, at the risk of oversimplifying, you know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. We call on our neighbors when we need them. They call on us. No money changes hands. We pay our dues to the mutual aid system, which maintains this at the $8,000 a year. We're responsible for our people and our equipment when we go to a mutual aid call, as are they when they come to ours.
Brian, does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is capital reserve expenditure request, fire rescue, car 1, $71,700.
Thank you.
So during the budget process last year, the chief had requested a capital outlay for the replacement of car 1. It made it through the town manager's review. It made it through the Board of Selectmen's review. As we approached the budget committee had removed it and suggested that we utilize funds out of the capital reserve for such purpose. You have a memo from me outlining that motion from the budget committee. You also have in that memo the establishment of the capital reserve fund and the language of such in 2008. And on the back of that, you have a copy of the balance in that account through April 30th, 2025. Chief's here to speak on behalf of the request.
Thank you. To follow up with that, as we move forward through the budget process, as you recall, at a certain point, I believe it was in December, the Budget Committee recommended removing it from capital outlay and replacing the car from capital reserve. We were asked by the town manager to kind of analyze how that would look. I believe the deputy just handed out to you the memo we created based on that. And the long and the short of it is we did get 2 quotes for repairs. They were dramatically different, but at least one of them indicated that parts were no longer being made for the rocker panel, primarily where the worst of the issue is. So after some discussion and some thought, we felt rather than ask for additional operating funds to cover the cost of the repair, and B, run the risk of getting several $1,000s into the repair and then finding out that those parts were not going to be available, we felt, after an analysis of the condition of the capital reserve fund and our projected expenses going forward, that we could absorb that cost from the capital reserve fund and not dramatically affect our plans moving forward. So that was our recommendation to the town manager, and frankly, that's where it sat. When town meeting approved the ambulance article and we were in a position to look at 2 vehicles, we did solicit quotes from the same couple of vendors based on the state bid and so forth, you know, kind of thinking if, you know, was there a efficiency of scale or a quantity discount, if you will. And essentially the answer came back, no, the state bid price is about the best we can do. There are some dealer options and I guess some credits, if you will. So we asked for quotes for a vehicle, and in my words, were similar to what we have today. They both came back with the Expedition, which is what we have today. One of the concerns that we had was we have an existing command center in the back of car 1 that includes some compartmentation. It mounts equipment. It has radios mounted in it, and some workspace for working at scenes, diagramming things, tracking resources, and so forth, which is in very good condition, and we felt we wanted to keep that. We had to make sure that any new vehicle, that unit would fit in the back. And that became a bit of a question, and frankly is why it's taken as long as it has to get here, because we had to get confirmation from Ford through the dealer that that unit would physically fit in the back. I didn't, frankly, want to have to spend more money to replace that. The answer came back that in the 2025 Expedition Max, that unit will fit. So that's what we pursued. We received a quote of $52,761 for the vehicle with a $3,000 trade-in, which frankly we thought was generous. But they physically came to the building, 2 weeks ago, and updated their quote for the trade-in, reviewed the vehicle so they know what kind of shape it's in, which netted us out at $49,761 for the vehicle. We've got two quotes, one of which we attached for your backup material, which would include moving the radios, keeping the existing radios, moving them into the new car, moving the command center, and the quote that we're recommending we go with included striping and our department decals on the side and so forth, as well as moving that equipment. The lighting, we elected to go with new, primarily because of the different style. We were able to look at, some of the more subdued lighting packages, and would also come with a warranty. Moving the old equipment basically would be starting from scratch, new cabling and so forth, and there wouldn't be any warranty attached to that. So because the quotes in both cases are worded in such a way that, this is the price. However, we reserve the right to make adjustments based on, let's say, national conditions. We're asking for a contingency to allow for any increases that might come along between the time of order and the time of delivery. In the end, it totals $71,691. So what we're asking you tonight is to consider withdrawing, in round figures, $71,700 from capital reserve to allow us to move forward with the replacement of the car.
Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Okay, so thank you for that, Tom. So let me try to establish a fact pattern. Last year, when this board was going through budgets, we said it's okay to have a capital outlay for the car. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
And then we passed it over, so we already voted that says it's okay. We sent it over to the Budget Committee, and the Budget Committee said, we don't have any heartburn over this, we just don't want to have it come out of this account. Okay? They didn't say, no, it's a bad idea. Well, even if they did, we said it was okay. So I'm not in the, I really don't know what has changed materially based upon what you just said that would cause me to say it's no longer okay. So what I'm going to do, and it'll give my colleagues an opportunity to discuss it more, is I'm going to put a motion out. Where's the motion that you wrote for us there, Tom? Somewhere in this pile of paper I have. I'm going to move that we where is the motion, Tom? There it is. I move Wolfeboro Select Board authorize the withdrawal of from the Fire Apparatus and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund in the amount of $71,700 for the replacement and upfitting of the Fire Rescue Command vehicle.
Could you add up to?
Up to 71,700. Up to.
Second that.
We've already voted once on it, so
Now it's this discussion.
let's do it again.
I had the issue is I went back to where the capital reserve fund is, because that, we're really kind of killing our capital reserve funds. And I went back to one, and this one that you handed me is a change from the one that I got from the town manager earlier, because the SCBA equipment is moved out to 2029, and the one I had said it was going to be done in 2026. So, and this was what I got from Jim, because I didn't know where my CIP was.
Correct, and that was the CIP document that
Yeah,
was submitted last year.
so I'm looking at how are we dealing with keeping our capital reserve funds functioning the way they should. And the other thing I noticed that is, and I went back, got our Warren article, because the reason we're not putting money in the capital reserve is because we're paying off that. So when I went to this, I wanted to see when that money was going to come back in. I don't have that. Then I go back out here in the one I had that we were going to replace, no, that was an ambulance. A ladder truck, or $1 million 600 truck in 2035, and what I can't...
That's an engine, I'm sorry.
Okay, I cannot see how putting in our money out to when we get a new truck, that we're going to have the money that we need to have. And that's what I like to see in a capital reserve account, is we know when the revenue should start coming in, and we can use the number that's here, and give me some kind of idea, taking out this truck, that we're still on target of using the capital reserve account for what it is, a savings account for those big items. We changed it because we had a good deal to get this engine and payment. But I have yet to see that kind of a capital reserve going all the way out, either in the CIP or what's here.
I'm not sure I can answer that, because it was in the CIP that we submitted that showed, I'll use the term, the understanding was for the period of the lease of Engine 3, we would not ask the taxpayers to contribute any more money to CIP.
But I think the question...
If you look at the chart, it shows that money at the level we had previously asked for, returning, and I believe it's 2027. It could be 28. I'm working from memory.
27 is the last one. I don't see anything. It says fund balance, and there's no money added to it throughout, so that I can see an increase, because starting in 2028, you should be able to estimate amount putting it in.
It was...
So
if it's not in there, I can't explain that, but we
I've
can
got
certainly get
two
it
of
for
them,
you.
neither one of them have
I love it when Linda holds up two pieces of paper, because normally she's right.
I just know it's the documents I could find.
But the question,
One I asked for,
but the question kind of goes like this, at least for me. Do we believe, whatever the right word is, that we should be replacing this vehicle? This board said last year, yes, do that. Linda is, and I don't know whether you're agreeing that we should replace it. Linda is bringing up a separate issue that says, are we ensuring that we're salting enough money into the kitty so that we, when the next big tranche of expense comes along, and
But
those are two different...
No, they aren't, because you're asking me to take money out of that account. That's where it comes together. I approved it for coming out of the budget.
Yeah.
All right? Now you're saying we're going to take it out of here, and I don't have what I think should be a document that I can see that we're going to keep this capital reserve fund afloat.
So I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but your ask would be, you need to see
I think it's
an
pretty
accrual, more accruals set up for this account going forward.
I want to see what we always do on a capital reserve fund, the amounts we're going to put in, and when the next vehicle we're going to take out. If we don't do that, these capital reserve accounts get so that when the vehicle
they become in and
comes
outs. They become in and outs.
You got it.
Yeah, they become, I got that part.
So I'm saying, you want me to take the money out, I would have liked to seen this fund with the money coming in, so I could see that it balanced, and if it does, no problem.
Yeah, Linda wants to see that in 10 years, when the next big ticket item is coming up, is there enough funds to pay for that big ticket item? If not, then we are not using the reserve fund correctly.
Well, I got that. So how do we solve that problem? Do we solve
can I
that problem by
interject
saying, put more
one
money
thing?
in at CIP time?
I believe the deputy just passed out the memo dated December 17, 2024. If you go to the chart, down towards the bottom, it says running CIP total, and I think you'll find that reflects going forward, at least in this case, till 2030, when the lease payment ends in 2027, and in 2028, we go back to contributing the round figure $200,000 a year that we had been contributing prior to the lease purchase of Engine 3. What this essentially says is that
This is the
looking
December
at
17th, 2024 memo?
looking at the gains that the account saw during the course of 2024, we felt that in light of being removed from the budget, the account could absorb the, at the time, approximately $75,000. We've been able to come down a little bit to allow us to move forward. Again, and I also believe that since this actual submittal, some of these capital reserve items have been moved around a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to go. I get this.
Right, because some of
Now you
this
got a third one.
changed.
I asked for it, and this is what I got, because that's what I thought was the last one we saw.
But the logic, at least for me, the logic is, do we or do we not believe that a new vehicle is required? And I think the board said last year, yes. Linda's saying it was okay to say okay if it was not coming out of capital reserve, but coming coming out of the operating side. That was kind of your.
That was our decision.
That was your decision.
That was
Okay.
the board's
So that was a
decision.
tied decision that we would take it out of that. I got that part. But how do we fix this? We fix this, I think, by saying, and by the way, we need to make sure that we're all comfortable that as we enter the 2026 CIP or budget, that we are setting up an appropriate accrual account, whatever the right words are you want to use, so that we don't exhaust this thing and turn it into Linda's words, at least my words, Linda will agree, an in-out account. You know, salt away a couple of bucks and then you
Well,
clean
it
it up.
has worked so well for so long.
Yeah.
And now
And
we
one of
did-
our concerns,
So you
frankly,
need to top it off.
Yes.
when we
gotta
elected,
top it off.
and in all honesty, we're fine with the concept of not paying more into it while we're paying the lease purchase payment. But what changed is the ambulance project. So we had kicked around the idea of, to honor that commitment of not double burdening the taxpayers, if you will, by paying the lease purchase payment and also contributing additional money to the capital reserve fund. Was it time to revisit that in light of the additions that the town and the voters have at this point elected to add going forward? I think that's one of the things that we've discussed with the town manager as going forward as to how to allocate those revenues once that process starts in the ambulance account, if you will. What's changed is, frankly, is the addition of the ambulance vehicles. Generally speaking, they'll be a little bit further out. The intent was to be on a 5-year rotation, and so we're not, buying two at the same time. One of the drawbacks to this proposal, as far as the car and/or car 2 go, is if we move forward, they're both the same age and make and model.
Same year.
Going forward, in a perfect world, we would rotate them rather than going 10 years with nothing and then dumping 2.
Well, that's the
Yeah,
operating side.
yeah.
That's what Brian
Well,
and I had
yeah.
a conversation.
Yeah, and what I see is engine 1 in 2034, a boat in 2036, replace engine 2 in 2038, and somewhere in that piece, another $160,000 for 2 cars that aren't on the list, because you know that they're only going to last 10 years. So I think,
they've been on a 10-year, well, it's been on a 10-year
Yeah.
rotation for as long back as any of us can remember.
So I guess I'm
It
comfortable.
was due to be replaced under that system in 2025.
So I'm comfortable with Linda in that if you come back to me and show me between 2000, and this is a long projection, but things creep up on you and show up much quicker than you think sometimes, that if when we get into the mid-2030s, if you can give us projections that show we're going to be financially okay, we're not going to get hit with a bill that we don't have money for, or have to take our capital reserve fund and double it, then I'm okay going forward with things.
And again, I didn't bring the entire capital reserve program tonight, but I believe under what we had last proposed, it funded itself at least for the 10-year window of the capital reserve program. Now, I literally have it going out to 2086. I mean, it's just, we carried it forward.
Bless your heart.
As far as we could.
Yeah.
And as you might imagine, at some point,
At some point, it gets ridiculous.
but, you know, in some respects, it's fluid because, again, we've, on one hand, we've reduced the size of the fleet by one engine, 4 years ago, give or take, when we purchased what's now Truck 5, to keep for a number of reasons, but not the least of which was to keep that program viable going forward. You know, the guidance we've always received in the capital improvement program is that it's for items in excess of $100,000 that last a certain period of time. And we have made every attempt to honor that, which is why we put it in the capital outlay.
Right.
And then the budget committee said, we'd rather see you take it out of capital reserve, which is in the end why we're here today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I guess what I'm getting at, before we as a board okay a payment out of the capital reserve, we should ask for a spreadsheet on whatever it is, on where it is laying out for 5 years. So if I decide to do it here, but let's say we just had the sidewalk, you know, one come in and we took it and we got rid of just about all of it. Somewheres we need to have these capital reserves laid out on a 10-year plan, so we're not just using them to in and out, that we know over that 10-year, we can cover those major items we want to cover. And that's, you know, part of the reason what I didn't have this. I had to get, I asked Jim, and the last time I remember seeing one was the CIP.
Right.
You know, in trying to say.
A lot's changed since August, yeah.
So looking to try to find out where this would sit and where we're going. And that, to me, is an important piece of backup information. And my other concern is 2 cars in the same year. I'm not going to not vote for this, but it's the information that it would be good to have when I sit here, and then I will use this when people ask me, why in the heck did you okay that?
So I'm going to go back a little bit. So your vehicle's 10 years old.
Correct.
How many miles are on it?
About 52,000.
So in 10 years, it's got 52,000 and the rocker panels are rotted out of it?
Yes. And in all honesty, it's more about hours than miles. But frankly, where it's I'm not sure if I'm going to use the right term, passenger vehicle, I've approached our head mechanic and he said that maybe we can pull the number of hours off the onboard computer, but it's not readily accessible. We have a trip meter. In theory, if somebody had not reset it from day one, we could provide you with how many hours it has. But
So I can appreciate that. I'm just really trying to digest maintenance on your vehicles and to say your vehicle's 10 years old, it's only got 52,000. And I'm not being critical, but I'm thinking of all those people out there that are going to the car wash, cleaning their car off underneath so that the thing will last more than 10 years. And I mean, if you got 2 more extra years out of your vehicle, that would roll over. And again, the taxpayers would be able to save money. I'm looking at the chief back there going, where's my vehicles? And he just got voted down on his vehicles, you see? So that's what I'm thinking about. I'm really thinking that, you know, it's easy for, and I don't mean this disparagingly, that it's easy just to say, I know I'm getting a vehicle in 10 years and it's going to happen no matter what. So guys, you know, do I need to make a trip to the car wash? Do I need to spend extra time taking care of the vehicle? I mean, I've got a truck that's 25 years old. It's got 200,000 miles on it still. But again, that's why I'm saying it's 10 years old with 52,000. I have a problem with this, to tell you the truth. And when you go to allocate the funds, 71,000, I'm saying money gets cheaper over time. Why are you putting money into a fund and then just yanking it out? To me, you're yanking it out because that money is going to get cheaper as time goes on. So I think actually it's better to put the money away and then yank it out, because when you wait 10 years, the $100,000 buying power isn't $100,000 anymore.
And it's been roughly 20 years that we've had that guidance, and that we can't buy
But to me,
what we could 20 years ago for $100,000.
That's correct. So to me, that process there, I don't buy into that CIP capital fund process, because money gets cheaper over time, and the value goes down with the dollar, and so I'm not buying into it. What I'm buying into is I don't think that the vehicle was maintained very well, but if you need a vehicle and it needs to get new rocker panels, I would say next time take better care of your vehicle.
I guess I would say I appreciate that. However, I think we take quite good care of our vehicles. I do know we have now the ability to have the highway department undercoat them, which we didn't have before. We have done that with this vehicle and others through this year to try to extend as much as we could. The issue I think we have is that, right, wrong, or indifferent, the parts that we're told we need to fix that are not being made anymore, and if there's not some old stock somewhere that they can get a hold of, we're going to spend good money after bad to get partway through a fix that we can't fix.
I can appreciate that. I was looking at what the parts were that you needed,
Right,
so that I could understand what you needed to fix the vehicle. So again, when you understand the vehicles, you understand the parts, then you can understand what happened and why it didn't last the way it did. So if your rocker panels are gone, it's not going to pass inspection.
That's
and
the concern.
It's rotted because it got salt on it and it wasn't addressed when it should have been addressed. That's my own opinion, and I'm just going to move on.
So just a comment on that, two things. The fact that the dollar purchasing power erodes over time, that's fact. Inflation tells us that. And then the present value of it, or the future value of an asset, a car companies, whatever, they figure this stuff out, and that's why prices go up for cars. They try to keep pace with inflation. I guess you do have maintenance plans on your car, and you have that stuff. So that might be a good help for maybe one of our colleagues to take a look at, because they're supposed to keep tabs of what parts and stuff they use to maintain the vehicles. But I'm back to the question that I think that Linda has asked, and that is, and by the way, I support socking money away. It's a smart thing to do, because all of a sudden, whammo, a big hit on we need a new fire truck or whatever. We need a new resin frats. That's a whammo on taxpayers and tax rates. The question that Linda has, and Linda, I'm still a little gummied here with it, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. You want to see a document that says we're going to replenish our kitty, the Christmas club. We're going to replenish our kitty? No.
No, yes, obviously, that's what I was talking about. You want a chart, we'll put X amount, and then we cover it in that end. It's what we've done, a spreadsheet,
right,
forever. And that's what I'm looking at, and we're getting away from doing that.
Okay.
And this was one place where I tried to see where it was, and it isn't part of the backup that came with this. And I'm not trying to be critical.
Understood, but it exists. I'm not sure
hang
why
on,
we don't have
what
it.
Linda saw was a bigger than normal drift from the status quo. I think that's what you're,
I was looking, you were asking, I knew we were asking for 2 cars. And then I wanted to say, okay, what's in the capital reserve? You know, us asking for these things then helps the staff know next time to provide it for us. It isn't to be, oh, you didn't do this. It is what I do when I try to make a decision on whether I'm going to vote yes or no. And one of the things I looked at was, where are we in the capital reserve? Because you're asking me to take it out of there.
Right.
That's why I went to the capital
We
reserve.
did, I believe, attach to that as well, what the balance was as of the end of April is in that handout. You know, for what it's worth, I would point out that every year when we submit our budget, we also submit our capital outlay requests for those things that are less than the $100,000. This has been on it on a 10-year cycle, as are our smaller vehicles and equipment, the snow machine, the Gator, the Ranger, and so forth.
I'm not worried about whether you have them on schedule.
No, understood.
I'm worried whether I get that in my backup package to make the decision. That's what I'm.
Okay.
And I'm not what you do a very nice job. And that capital reserve account, I used to be able to see. Sometimes you gave it to us 20 years out, and I could really. But I don't have that. I didn't have that, and you were asking me to do this.
The issue we face, and I mean, maybe Public Works has the same issue, is that we're asked to provide a 10-year window in the capital reserve program, but the stuff we're replacing generally has a 20 to 30-year lifespan.
That's why you gave
And
me
that's
that
why
20.
we tend to,
Yep.
okay, here's the 10 years, but here's what's coming after that.
Yep.
So what you're looking for really is, on this running CIP, you want to see the year that the $200,000 is added in on a line that is identified by CIP contribution, 2028, $200,000. It brings this from 51,000 and change to 250 and some change.
Ding, ding,
Yep.
ding.
And then I can watch-
We will have that for you at the next meeting.
Ding, ding, ding.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the withdrawal of this no more than $71,700
Up to.
from capital reserve. We also, at least from my perspective, we have money in the capital reserve fund. Budget committee told them and us, basically, they weren't going to fund it in the budget, take it out of the capital reserve fund. So, here we are. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Thank you. And Jim will get that information.
And Jim's got an IOU. Jim's got us an IOU.
We'll get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda. Lake Region Household Hazardous Waste Host Site Agreement.
Okay, so as you're aware, we've been working with Lakes Region Planning Commission to handle our household hazardous waste collection for the year 2025. They have provided me with a contract. The cost for the event is $12,923. That means that there will be an event held in Wolfeboro, overseen by Lakes Region Planning Commission on June 21st, 2025. And moving forward, the household hazardous waste at other communities the citizens of Wolfeboro will be honored to go to those facilities, but there will only be one in Wolfeboro this year. If we did not do this, there would be no collection for 2025. We don't want to do that. So in here you have a agreement with the hauler for your review. You have an email with the correspondence outlining the costs. You have the host site agreement, and you have the flyer, which has been produced by Lakes Region Household Hazardous Waste Collection through the Lakes Region Planning Commission, which identifies Wolfeboro, and the additional sites where events will be taking place, and requirements of what's being accepted at those sites. And as requested, there is no fee associated with this for Wolfeboro residents. I'm hopeful that you will endorse this project so that we can continue to have household hazardous waste collection in the town of Wolfeboro and for the citizens around the lake. It seems like it will be a good partnership moving forward. And then there'll be more coming related to the relationship between the town of Wolfeboro and Alton and the joint agreement and joint board. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one question. It says the host site agreement, and do we have a site coordinator? I mean, there's a lot here, and I'm
They are providing the site coordinator.
This is all going to be provided by them, so we don't have to do that.
Nothing.
Okay. And I'm correct that in the budget was $64,325. So this is a significant savings for Wolfeboro.
That is correct.
Okay.
The reduction is we don't have as many collections in the town of Wolfeboro.
I understand that, but by doing this, it is a reduction.
Correct.
Correct.
And for us to do that in our own town, finding the staffing is just not realistic.
Not
when
realistic.
we went back and looked at that.
Correct.
And how many times will we remind ourselves of how much we miss Sarah Silk?
Yep, absolutely.
Jim, one question.
This agreement out of the way first.
Yeah, I want to ask Jim one more question. If we decide to go to 2 days, say a spring and a fall day, does the $12,923 double or?
So I don't think we'll be able to do that for this year.
Well, no, not that, for the future years.
For the future year, those are questions that we'll have as we build the 2025 budget. We'll sit down with Lakes Region and say, okay, look, if we wanted to have 2 or 3 sites in Wolfeboro, would you have the capacity to do that, and what would those costs be?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the town of Wolfeboro enter into the first contract extension and amendment to the operation of the maintenance agreement at the town of Wolfeboro's waste. No, this is the waste, I'm sorry, the wooden car, I'm ahead of you. Yeah, what the hell is he talking about? It's late, Dave. Why didn't you stop me from doing it? Did we just authorize you to do this?
Wrong waste.
Wrong waste.
It says you can't dispose of human waste at these sites.
Would you stop it? Stop that.
So I basically would like.
Did we just authorize you to sign it?
I would like an endorsement to be able to
We'd
sign
like to
it.
endorse, okay.
Second.
Second, thank you. That was in the wastewater treatment thing.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank
Okay,
you.
the next business, we have
Here, you read it.
a sign to put on the building.
So we can have that conversation now. Amy was kind enough to go out and secure, in conjunction with a couple people, a couple of different renditions and a quote for a sign to be able to be put up, whether we want to do it on the building at household hazardous waste, whether you want to do it at a fence. I think Linda and John were going to look at that and go forward with a recommendation to us. The description of the sign is it's 10 inches by 3 feet. It's a couple different options here. I know this is not color, but we'd like to be able to at least get this moving because it's going to take a little bit of time to secure the sign, and we'd like to be able to have it in the air for the collection day on June 21st.
Jim, am I correct that when the Lakes region comes in, they're going to bring a trailer in? They're not going to use our buildings, or are they going to use our buildings?
I believe they are going to utilize their own truck that the hauler will bring in. I don't believe they'll be using in our buildings. They may use the fenced-off area, but that's about it.
So we really don't know what's going to happen to those buildings.
We don't.
And that's why I would like to have it say the household hazardous waste site.
Correct.
Because that's where they're then a building. And John and I can go look and see where on the fence, but I think it should be
I
not.
think we had talked about putting it on the fence. Or at least I had talked to Jim about it,
Well, yeah.
rather than on the building.
Yeah, that's where yeah,
I'm not on the fence about it. We should definitely put the sign up.
that sounds good.
Yeah. So what do you want to take off the waste building?
Just put, just do
Site
household
instead of
hazardous
building.
waste site.
Okay.
Yes.
That was-
Everybody agree with that? Sure.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Going to vote on sign 1 or sign 2?
Yeah, one's old print, one's a little bit different print.
The bottom one's easier to read.
I agree with you.
That's what I-
That's where I am.
Did you move that sign 2 should be the one we should do, sign 2?
Yeah,
Yeah, yep.
okay,
You got that one. That's the easiest thing
Everybody
we've
agree with
done.
that?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
look at that.
Next is approval of Woodward and Curran agreement.
I'm not going to make that motion.
So in front of you, you have a proposal to enter into a contract extension with Wood and Curran for the wastewater treatment facility. They came to us back in November. They gave a presentation on the operations out there, and they discussed about wanting to enter into a contract extension sooner than later. One of their reasons for wanting to enter into a contract extension is for their own staff stability. They had an employee who was there for a number of years who recently retired. They brought on some new staff, and they want to be able to ensure that they have a job going forward. It has been a good working relationship. I have provided the contract for you in conjunction with the contract extension. Both have been reviewed by legal. I did have a couple questions asked of me. I think I got those answers sent off. Some input from Dave Didion regarding why they would like to do the extension sooner than later. And it does seem to be a good working relationship, and they seem to do an excellent job. And I think it is early, but I think for their continued operations, it would make them feel very comfortable.
Yeah, I did ask the questions. I got the response from Dave Didion, and I'm absolutely comfortable. It really has to do, for me, was the fact it it would help them keep their staff and keep them in Wolfeboro. So I'm in support. Yeah, I'll make a motion. I move the town of Wolfeboro to enter into the first contract extension amendment to the operation and maintenance agreement at the town of Wolfeboro's wastewater treatment facility with Wood and Curran for a period of January 1, 2027 to December 31st, 2031. Further, to authorize the town manager to sign any related documents.
Second.
Okay,
I have a question.
no.
Thanks for reading that.
No,
Jim, is there, or Sam, is there any change in term or condition? Is this basically a copy over?
It's a copy over.
Okay, so there's
it's-
no, you're paying 4% more and you're getting a little less?
No,
Okay,
we sit
got it.
down every year, and in August, usually,
Yep,
we
okay.
talk about the proposal going forward. They tend to get us
Yep.
their budget
Sure.
by October, and it's plugged in. And the more savings that they observe in the operations, the more savings that we see based on a price plus contract.
You've answered my question, thank you.
Yeah, and as I said before, it looks like chemicals, lab supplies, office supplies, they mentioned when they were here that they buy those things up front in bulk so that they can
Sure.
save money, and that kind of front loads the
Budget.
budget.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
We're on a roll, Dave.
Yeah, well, next
on,
thing
Dave.
is 4th of July parade parking ban.
So you have in front of you a sample of what the flyer will look like with the dates 2025, not 2024 on them. And if you are good with this, we would like you to approve it so that we can move forward with getting the signs ordered. The signs read, Town of Wolfeboro, 4th of July parking ban. There shall be no parking along Main
Sam.
Street from Clark Road to Old Lakeview Terrace on July 4th, 2025. Rain date, July 5th, 2025, 7 a.m. to noon, between the hours of 7 a.m. and noon for the purpose of the Independence Day Parade, Union Street parking lot, Union Street Municipal Parking Lot is limited to accessible parking only. Vehicles will be towed at the owner's expense, and a fine of $50 will be imposed per order of the selectmen. And we will change that to select board.
So moved.
All right.
So question. So last year I was downtown and there was a cop going around trying to get people to move their vehicles because they were parked there early on and the ban was happening. So there was already cars there and nobody around. So the police officer had to go walk the beat and asking people whose cars. I mean,
Yeah.
can we expedite that and make it like 5 a.m. or something so that we can ensure that there's not people down there?
He's been sitting here all night waiting for that
Right.
It's basically the same thing every year, and I haven't been here that many years, but I've been here long enough to know there's a scheme happening. The signage will go up with the assistance of Steve and his crew with the midnight officer. They like to have their signs set up and good to go by the 7 a.m. start time.
Yep.
Your point is well taken. In fact, Mark and I or Captain William and I had that conversation where we want the midnight officer to start moving people along. There's no ban until 7 a.m.
Right.
So if folks want to go down, do whatever they need to do, they can. We're not authorized to close any parking, but we're not going to leave the area either. The officer's going to have to be tasked down in that area that we know always is the problem at that time and get people to move. My thoughts are that if we have to, we'll tow.
Yeah.
Because it is dangerous in certain sections. But the folks that are parking there, I hope will have a conversation with the officer, if that officer is available, to them to tell them what might happen if their car's there after the ban goes into effect. Certainly, we want to make sure that it's a safe avenue for the parade by the 9:30 closure time, which is consistent with in the past years.
So I have a question. Do you know how many accessible parking spots were used last year in that lot?
I don't.
Do we have any idea? Because I'm wondering if we cordoned off half the parking lot at midnight and left half open, would that satisfy both people that are there till later at night and leaves a good section of it cordoned off so that nobody will park there, and in the morning you won't have to work as hard to get the parking lot clear?
Well, we wouldn't be clearing the parking lot.
You're clearing the street.
Clearing the street.
People could literally come and park at the town docks. They literally can do that. They can park at, they can park anywhere, they just can't park on the street.
It's been my observation over the last couple of years anyway, that's exactly what they do.
Sure.
They'll come in, bring their vehicle in,
Sure.
and then they'll go buy coffee or donuts or what have you. They just know they can't drive around.
Or they'll get their pontoon boat and park over in the, that's a different issue.
We have a pretty large influx of vehicles in and out right up until the 9:30.
Yes.
And in fact, we're running up and down the street at 9:30 to make sure people are out of the way.
Well, I was talking specifically about this municipal lot. Have we had an issue in here for accessible
I
parking?
haven't noticed one.
Okay.
I haven't observed a problem at all with that. Okay. And I would guesstimate, and I have nothing to go back to, but I would guesstimate that probably around 85% of the people have done this before. They know, they were telling me what I'm supposed to do.
They know the drill.
First year I worked it, so
Right.
I get it, and I think they do too. It's just a few that are here for the first time.
And I think there's some truth to that, because when this first got underway, when I was first on the board, we took the decision not to do the whole length of the parade route. We kind of started, I think, Linda,
Downtown.
Yeah, we started in the down, we kind of did it up, and then we said, let's do it there, make sure people understand we're done, and expanded it. I haven't been firsthand involved with people parking. I do know, I saw someone trying to park a motorcycle or 2 or 3 on the bridge, and I think your team quickly helped them figure out that that wasn't sustainable. And it's about all I saw. But I do, to whoever mentioned it, people do come down like early in the morning and they load up with bags of donuts and Yum Yum Shop cookies, and then they skedaddle on out of there. So, I don't know. I'm comfortable.
In the past, we've had an officer or two assisting people in and out of the different stores, which I know retail looks forward to that time. The area that is of particular concern is what I would refer to as a choke point, and that's downtown when there's a lot of pedestrians.
Lots.
And it's all about the safety. Up above that by Brewster Field, it's wider, so we're not as concerned about that. But it's all the pedestrian traffic.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Do we want to approve the wording as amended?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. You're welcome.
Dave, I'm willing, on the agenda was the Wolfeboro Waters Assessment Subcommittee's goals. It was informational with a late hour. I'm willing to move it to the next meeting.
Okay.
It's just so
Everybody agree with
late.
that?
Thank you so much.
Hey,
I'm okay with it.
Is there any old business?
Other business?
No, I said old business.
Okay.
Is there any other business?
Yes, I wanted to thank our firefighters who just left. They did a great job Monday at a dive down at the docks. They pulled out 30 pounds worth of trash. They said they believe they got more than double of that in the fall when they did their dive. And so this is something that they may do a couple of times a year for us now to keep the dock areas clean.
You know what, we should write a thank you note to them.
Yeah.
Sign it by the board, because that really is important, because it makes it look a whole lot better, and it's something they don't have to do.
Yeah.
They also volunteer as a training for the Smith River Canoe Race that went off the Saturday, and the river was roaring, and they had they get some practice.
I'm hoping with good luck that there'll be a thank you in the newspaper for them too. Hope.
All right, town manager's report.
Just a couple of things. One, Mount Washington has reached out to us. Traditionally, they do not come into Wolfeboro on Sundays. However, there's work which is taking place at the Alton Docks, so they are looking to come into Wolfeboro on Sundays. They have updated their permit. They've paid the fee, so it's more of an FYI at this point that the Mount Wash will be coming into Wolfeboro 7 days a week now. Secondly, I am able to announce now that we have hired a town planner. The town planner will be starting on August 4th. His name is Bill Scott. He has 30-plus years of municipal experience. Some of his experience includes being an assistant town manager in Yarmouth, Massachusetts, being an assistant town manager in Salem, New Hampshire. He's been involved in planning for the town of Amesbury, Mass., planning in the town of Salem, New Hampshire, planning for North Andover, Mass., planning for Newburyport, and he got his start in Orange, Massachusetts. So he will be coming on board. He will be starting August 4th. Looking forward to having that position filled. We have filled the code officer. He will as well be starting August 4th. He will be in-house intermittently, just waiting on the completion of his background. And short of that, I think that is all that I have for you.
Okay, committee reports. John?
I had a Waters meeting with Linda this week, and to get things started off, I had a meeting with Jim at the Public Safety Building, And I'd like to give a shout out to my son for graduating at UNH this weekend here at the Paul School of Business. Right, Adrian?
Another year.
Or I can just go, we had a meeting at the Libby, and I think that's all I've had.
Okay,
I think there was something else.
Docs.
Okay.
Okay. I attended the Wolfeboro Waters Committee meeting in which the committee reviewed the drainage at the Public Safety Building. Wolfeboro Waters Committee will meet tomorrow at the Public Safety site with the system designer to make sure the system is working as designed. The committee is disappointed that the filtering system was not installed at the Public Safety Building. The committee discussed the need to use stormwater containment methods up higher in the watershed. I met with the Rust Pond Association and DES to discuss how to use the Rust Ponds 319 grant already awarded and how that can be added to a new application. I had 2 meetings of Wolfeboro Waters. We're focusing on securing our performers, discussing fundraising and venue. I attended the Municipal Association seminar on a hard road to travel. I learned a few new things, but it was an excellent review. I attended the EDC meeting, but I'll leave that report to Brian. I attended with 4 other board members the Libby Museum site visit to talk with the engineer who will verify the foundation is sound and design a remedial structural plan. This morning I attended the Community TV board meeting and I learned Wolfeboro Community TV is at a critical juncture, especially concerning its budget. With the default budget, Wolfeboro Community TV has lost funding for the necessary staffing, equipment, and functioning. Potentially, Wolfeboro Community Television will need to shut down operations in the fall of 2025 for lack of funding. The Wolfeboro Community TV Board is committed to attempting new and additional fundraising efforts and designing a fundraising campaign to bridge the gap. And that's all I have.
Paul?
I attended the planning board meeting last night. There was a pretty fair amount of discussion about a demolition review committee. More to be shared on that coming forward. Police Commission, I've attended their meeting. I don't know if I mentioned that the commissioners voted unanimously to grow their board from 3 to 5, and they understand that they have to go through a pretty elaborate process to do that, so more to come on that one. We've all been spending almost 8 hours of time talking about docks and wharves and the ordinances and the regulations around the same. I as well attended the Libby meeting yesterday with the engineers and with my colleagues. And also last, I attended the kickoff meeting of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and for those of you on TV and out there, tomorrow is the last day of this traveling exhibit, and you really should come and see it. It is pretty awesome. And I want to thank them because this is what a great hall really should be doing, is great things. So, and boy, we could probably put a couple of Libby exhibits here. So that's all I have to report. Thank you.
And Paul, you're right, this was an outstanding exhibit. I did it the other day. Unbelievable.
Right behind Dave is George Washington. He's been looking at you during the entire meeting, Dave. He's right there. It's pretty cool.
Yep.
So I went to the Libby meeting also, the trustees meeting, and I think we've made a first good step to actually have a building mover who knows how to secure structures and a very, very good structural engineer who's going to do an examination into the interior of the wall cavities and the roof structure and have a good plan to go forward. I found out some information from that structural engineer that I knew but didn't know before, and that's that the foundation holds the walls and the floor is a separate thing. So all the barrels that have been talked about underneath supporting the floor can come out and we can put new supports for the floor underneath there without tearing down the whole building, which is a lot different than what had kind of been perceived by me from information that I've gotten. So that was a great meeting, and that's going to be moving forward. We had an EDC meeting, and we did a recap. We talked about the recap for the businesses that we had at Trenta, and the big issues, they said, was communication, and they were talking about everybody knowing what's happening on events in town. And they said, even with all social media, there's so many holes where people don't know what's happening in town for Wolfeboro when we have different events and activities and meetings and everything like that. I also watched the Hard Road to Travel and got pieces of information that you can watch, every year they bring new things and regulations change.
Yep.
And you have to be updated. And we had great docks and wharfs meetings. I talked to the chair of the sidewalk committee, and he's going to, by Friday, have all his information to the town so that we can go forward with finishing the sidewalk ordinance. And I had a couple of people actually ping me on my phone during the meeting and said, Recreation Drive, Recreation Lane, and Recreation Way for suggested names for the road down at Abenaki and Pop Whalen. And that's all I have.
Any questions from the press?
She is not on.
Okay, public input? Anybody want to talk to us?
Good evening, Mary Schillereff, Wolfeboro, and I just want to shout out to Linda for sharing our board meeting this morning, WCTV. If I could yell, I won't. It's critical. It's critical where we are. The budget, the loss of the funds has just put a halt on so many things, and the going dark is meaning the folks that can benefit from seeing this online, on TV live and then recorded with the CC captions that we talked about at the last meeting. I know we're all in the same boat. We have the community we're reaching out to. We're doing the forensic dive. This board is working extremely well and appreciate this, our WCT board, appreciate what this board is doing to secure this vital and valued resource. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Bobby Budman, I think I have my emotions in check this time because it's just a really hard topic to talk about. But I do want to continue. You guys just voted on a sign, putting up a sign. It was pretty easy, right? It wasn't like a hard vote. But I just want to finish off saying that currently, and I never want to make this board political, but I think that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, we can all agree that our politics are kind of changing here. And right now in our House, we have 2 bills that are moving forward that strip the rights of anyone under age 18 to access birth control. And within our society, the majority of New Hampshire, I'm going to call them children, become sexually active under age 18. So we are about to cut off, on top of the fact that we have other factors that lead to unintended pregnancies, a pretty big mitigating factor that would also indicate that pregnancies are about to be on the rise. And I think that we've had some pretty extreme situations with dumpster deaths going up, with the fact that in our state, babies have now been found, newborns have now been found dead, and the key indicators are there. Texas, abortion ban, over 23,000 rape pregnancies since the abortion ban. In the 14 states where abortion bans are happening, 56,000 unintended rape, well, they're not unintended by the person apparently doing the rape, but rape pregnancies. These are pretty catastrophic things that we need to look at. And if simply putting up a sign that allows a female in crisis to drop a baby at our fire department, our police department, or our hospital, it's not a lot to ask. It's not a baby box. It's not a commitment. It's not getting anything political into this. It's simply giving one more educational tool that our children don't understand. We have a safe haven law. So I'm going to leave that there. I do want to talk about the ice rink. I think we're all excited to hear the numbers and all the good things going up again, but the August issue, putting in the ice early, still is something that I have not heard dollar amounts on. How much money is it going to cost to put this ice in? If the average ice in a colder month costs on average about, $5,100 to get that ice in, how much is it going to cost us in August to get it in, especially with compressor problems? Again, I want to curl, so this is not something I don't want to do. I want to see this happen, but I think we have to be honest for the community about, is this really going to pay off? The other thing is a water issue. I don't know where the water comes from I don't know if it's a well, I don't know if it's town, I don't know, but an inch of that ice is 11,000 gallons of water at a time when we still have suburb residents here, so I don't know if that draws too much water from the community or not. So I just think there are other factors that maybe we should look at when we're talking about how putting in the ice early will affect our community. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I listen to permits at every meeting, and if a business person's going to come in and permit our facility, does it not have to go through this board, or are there different rules for a business going into the ice arena and just being allowed to rent it? I don't know if it's a different situation, but everywhere else, they have to come before the board and ask for a permit. So I didn't know if that was something that's being overlooked. I think those are my things. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.